Debate, Uncut and After Show. I'm your host Nathan Oakley, and if you are new to this channel, or you've not done so already, then be sure to subscribe, hit the bell notification icon and join button if you'd like to become a Nathan Oakley 1980 channel member and keep up to date with the Flat Earth debate. If you would like to support the channel, there is a super chat that runs alongside each of these shows while they premiere, and there's also a coffee, Patreon, crypto and thanks button in the info box below the video. Speaking of Patreons, I'm going to do a quick shout out to all of you who do support me on Patreon. So a massive shout of thanks and appreciation to, first and foremost, new Patreon Felis Mengas. Hopefully I'm saying that correctly. Smith Tools and Purchase, Level Playing Poem, Vitali Z, Colton James, BG, Effie Patriot, Thomas van der Zander, Chris Wouters, Mia in the Shire, Mitch Kennedy, Rod, The Name's Burley, Jason Hornsby, J Mel's 24, Unamento, Iron 26, Endless, Retro Bill, John Kays, Patrick Gunnels, Banter, Hairy Blade, Mobile Max 777, Rob W, Del West Watson, Unbelievable Productions, Blue Ridge Ranger, Abraham Mohammed, Skeptic 936, Chow Young Cat, David Wayne Foster, and Dank. So another massive thank you to all of you for supporting me on Patreon. Links to Patreon, as I say, are below this video, but with that I will hand across to whoever is in Discord and Google so you can enjoy their dulcet tones while I set up for today's live show. Oh, I need to make this an open call. Open. There we go. Done. Done.
Da-dum-dum. Right, do some work. Speak in a bit.
Yep, indeedy. Did I schedule the show? Yes, I did. Hey, Steve. Hey, Dank. Hey, Righteous.
Hello.
Good morning.
Morning.
Hey there. Hi, everybody.
Hey, Jardo.
Hello.
Hello. That was my Australian
Hello.
accent.
Okay, not everybody said hello.
Yes, they did. That's correct, Neil. Very observant.
Now let's get on with it.
Get on with what?
Aw, he sounds really tired.
He is tired. You tired, Neil?
Yeah, I'm a little bit tired today.
That's what my wife just said. She says he sounds really tired. You probably can't hear because I've got a really good shotgun mic and it would have cancelled her out.
Hard to sleep with a heavy heart.
Oh, don't stress. It's all going to be okay, Neil. Don't worry.
I don't see it that way. I mean, we're gonna come out on top, but I don't see any type of reconciliation to what it was because now once you do something like that, I can never trust you again.
Oh, well, you don't know how fickle I am, do you?
What are you talking about, Neil?
Yeah, let's not have this conversation at the present time. Just a personal matter between Neil and I.
Okay, I'll just leave that then.
Yeah, probably for the best. I'll tell you at a later date when things are resolved.
No problems.
Fortunately, it's not related to the subject matter. I remember back in the day, specifically when Anthony Riley and Arwin and that crowd were the Flat Earth debate crowd, it was a stress because we didn't have all the answers. We didn't know what we were doing. But my daily routine, which has been extended, I don't know if you remember me moaning last week about how I've now got to dig out stupid comments and go into the browsers to find the comments. Very irritating at first. Now I've kind of got used to it, and it just takes an extra 10 or 15 minutes, which I don't really have, but still, I do need to monitor my own comments. But the process of actually responding to people is just so much easier these days. Why? Because you just scroll through to find the flat Earth prerequisite in the comment. So you just scroll through and you go, there it is, down. And then you respond, you're going to need a flat earth for down. It's perpendicular to a plane of reference. Stop using flat earth prerequisites to pretend you're on a ball. Those things that used to trouble me back in the day, what, eight years ago, when we were looking at earth curve maths and asking ourselves where we would see a geometric horizon when measuring a flat earth linear distance horizontally, to say at this x distance horizontally on a flat plane, not that we mentioned the second bit, we should see earth curve blocking our view of these boats, and we can't see the earth curve. We see too much of the building. Now it's like, you're going to need a flat earth for the horizontal linear distance measurement, aren't you? Yes, so we're going to need a flat earth just to make this argument. Again, like I say, you just go through the comments and look for the flat earth prerequisite your opponent's using every single time. So there's very little stress around the subject matter itself. A bit like, I hate to use this analogy, but it is a good analogy by comparison. You know, in The Matrix, when Neo suddenly figures out that he's capable of moulding the system to his own will, and suddenly the bullets slow down, and he just moves out of their way. It's like that.
That's exactly how it is. You're right.
The people around us are the things that cause me the stress, as opposed to the arguments. Not anymore. They used to be. It used to be the arguments and the people on the opposing side. Now the people on the opposing side, when they lie, I ban them immediately. So when people come in and start putting things that I've said in quotes that I haven't said, immediate ban. When people come and strawman another commenter and tell them this is what you should be arguing for, I immediately ban them. If they misrepresent the argument or like I say, make up stuff that hasn't been said, again, immediate ban. It's like, you're not going to come and mess us around anymore. If you do that, immediately I ban them. Yeah, the subject of flat earth is easy. That's the easiest bit of my foray into this subject 10 years into it. The debate is no more. There never was one. So responding to people when they put something up, there are a very rare occasion where you're presented with something that you haven't seen before, but there's very little new under the sun. The things that distress me currently are absolutely abysmal finances and working several jobs. That stresses me out because there just isn't enough time in the day to do it all and get sleep. So for the last couple of weeks, I've been having 2 or 3 hours sleep, if that, each night. And I am physically exhausted, which is now having us, as of today, a knock-on effect with my kids. So today, my wife said, "Are you going to take the eldest," that's Eleanor, to art class? And I'm like, no. And I reminded her of that guy in the Land Rover that ended up on the railway line. Do you remember that guy? Clearly not.
Vaguely.
So here in the UK, there was a guy, I think it was in like 2000s. It's probably 15, 20 years ago now. But the guy was chatting online to a woman. And he was up all night and ended up only getting 2 or 3 hours sleep. He drove home drowsy, or drove to work, I can't remember which, but early in the morning, let's say 6 or 7 o'clock. And then he goes down an embankment in his Land Rover and crashes the Land Rover on the railway line in this embankment, in the cutting. Gets out the Land Rover, calls the police, and says, "I've crashed my Land Rover, it's on the railway line." And as he's saying it, you hear, as this train piles into his Land Rover, killing loads of people. And they ended up putting him in jail for murder because his irresponsible, reckless driving really tired, knowing that he was too exhausted to be in a car, caused lots of death. So I'm saying to my wife, I don't want that to be me. And Eleanor was listening to the conversation. She was like, yeah, we might end up dead. I'm like, no. There's a much bigger picture to this. And then I told him that story. Like, it's not just that you might end up killing yourself accidentally by way of drowsiness and smashing into a barrier. You might end up killing other people, which is, in a way, much, much worse.
And you'd have all that stress of having to sell your car to get the Land Rover before you could do it anyway.
No. I don't have to be in the Land Rover to be in that scenario. Craig, no. That's not what I mean.
Oh, okay.
But very amusing.
I get your point. Yeah.
So yeah, so because of my tiredness, it's now affecting Eleanor, and I had to be very apologetic to her because she loves that. It's an art history class that we pay for, and I said to my wife, look, phone Nikki and just tell her she can have the money for this class, which is always the case anyway. If she gets it in advance because people muck her around and don't turn up, and it's like, well, she still needs to cover all of her costs for the materials that she uses in preparation for the art class. So obviously she gets to keep that money, which isn't great, but by the same token, it's already gone out of our accounts, more specifically my wife's. I did ask her if she wanted it recompense or whatever the word is. She was like, no, it's fine. In other words, she's already accounted for it being paid for. It's just the fact that Eleanor doesn't get that lesson today, which is obviously a little bit upsetting for my eldest daughter because it's a good class. But anyway. Hopefully, I'll get a few things resolved over this next week, and then next week I'll be in a better sleep state to take her to these classes, because some of them are quite some distance away. When you're homeschooling, you can't just rely on things being local. You have to drive some distance to go to these classes, as we found very quickly on. We'll just do everything in Warwickshire, it's going to be great. You're like, no. There's, if you're going to find a good class, you've got to drive to it.
I don't get it. We didn't have that with homeschool. Now, there was some things like you could befriend different parents, and they would have like gatherings in a park or something. So at least you get the, social aspect of schooling where kids interact with each other. But as far as classes, they were all done at home in the curriculum. You used to have a different system out there.
Well, no, it's just whatever we want to do. So when we were starting out, we took them to every free tester class that there was out there and just picked and choose, and moreover asked the kids which ones they liked, and the ones that they enjoyed we continued doing. Now, in the case of some of them, they're just in someone's house. It's not like we're going to a school somewhere, although they are for some of them. For the drama class, it is actually in a school on a Saturday, but they rent the school. So it's not the school doing it. It's, in this case, Stagecoach. And both of them go to the class on a Saturday, one of the most expensive classes, in a school, but it's run by, some private group, so that they're doing a drama class, basically.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. The whole curriculum my wife had, everything was done just in our house.
Yeah, I mean, we do that too. We've got Twinkle. So there's an educational, don't know what you call it, like a website. It's got all sorts of downloadable materials that we pay for. And it's got,
Right.
All the curriculum that you could ever want. And you just pick and choose the things that you want to print out. Speaking of printing, that printer's brilliant, Craig. We were subscribing to an Epson printer, and it charges you per page, or you pay for a subscription per page, and when you run out, it's like, 10p a page. Whereas now we've got I can't remember what it's called, like a ink reservoir printer. And other than you having to click on the little outward arrow rather than print, there's no difference. You just click on a little up arrow to send it to the printer, and then click on print with Epson, and it just, if anything, it's better because you can then adjust the printing style and things on the fly, which you couldn't do with an air printer. It just allows you to print it, and often it would miss off borders and things. And when you're paying per page, it really irritated my wife. She'd be like, oh! Print it out and it's missing a corner. Do you want to add something, Mickey? Hopefully it's flat Earth related, because I can't be a baby bore for much longer.
Is my microphone working now? Can you hear me?
Yeah, you sound great.
Oh, okay. I was just wondering because last week you had mentioned, there was a kind of a liquidity issue, and I'm assuming I wasn't the only one who helped out a little bit. And how's it going?
Are you asking how poor I am?
No, I'm asking if you've received sufficient donations and help from people like us to help around the
Absolutely.
corner.
Yes, I'm eternally grateful. I'm sure you had a thank you from me. Like
No, but that's not important.
Did I not? Did I not thank you? Did you send it me via PayPal? Because I thank everybody via PayPal.
This? For some reason, I was in the live show and I sent a super chat. So.
Yes, you sent it right at the end, and then I thanked you in the after show shows. You wouldn't have heard it because it was a thank you after the show had finished. Am I correct? You sent it right towards the end of the live stream.
Yeah, it could have been towards the end, or maybe it was. No, I think actually I listened to the show about an hour later. So.
Oh, okay. If it was on a super chat, I would have thanked you on the either live stream at the time or in the after show if it came right at the end, which is what I think it was. But I try and thank absolutely everybody, and I am extremely grateful to people who give me financial support, especially at the moment, because I am incredibly poor. But does it help? Yeah, absolutely it helps. You're not kidding. So yeah, thanks again. Again, there's other things moving forward, hopefully rapidly over the next week or two, that will get the book published, and that'll be the main thing that will help me financially. It won't get published in the next couple of weeks, but just a few things need to be resolved. Hopefully they will be, and then I can move on, carrying on finishing it off.
I was calculating, if the current members that listen in all the time and that are subscribed, a small donation from each one of us would be sufficient to turn a bad corner,
True, but I'd like to just have something to offer. The book is a physical thing that people can physically have. I mean, it may not be physical; it might be, downloadable. But you know what I mean? It's a thing, as opposed to just me sticking my cap out. I mean, while that's being finished off, I may do that again. But so far, this may put it into context. I haven't had to run a GoFundMe. So typically, I like to just only do GoFundMes when there's like a massive mad expense that was unforeseen. So if the projector goes pop, the monitor dies, the computer blows up, an amp fails, whatever, something breaks, basically, then I'd normally do a GoFundMe for it. But then I can say, I'm doing this GoFundMe because this has broken. And then I go and get it and show that I've got it. And then everyone says, yeah, great, my money has gone towards that. Makes sense. Perfect. Whereas in the last, 6 months, maybe 12 months, my threat, if you want to call it that, is that I'll just have to do a GoFundMe just to keep the lights on, which is the last thing I want to do, because people are Patreons and people give me super chats like yourself. So those people just want to see that what they're doing to support me financially in that regard does actually keep the show running, as opposed to cover some unforeseen expense. And I'd prefer to keep, whatever the new version of GoFundMe is. I've forgotten what it's called now. What is it?
Give, Send, Go.
Give, Send, Go. I'd rather keep Give, Send, Go for things like that. Same with when Neil was in a bit of financial hardship. That was a perfect utilisation of Give, Send, Go, because somebody's got a specific thing that's happened to them that's caused them hardship. In this case, Neil had a car accident. Well, that's a thing, right? As opposed to just general being on YouTube has meant that I'm poor. So can you give me money? There's nothing to pay. If you want, you can see my bills. You know what I mean? I don't want to do that. In fact, to the point where I took on an extra role flogging microphones, and still am. I only thought I'd be doing it for a couple of months while we finished off the book. Here we are a year later. I'm still buying them and selling them. Very annoying. And it scares me every time I have to buy some, because suddenly you're in the hole a little bit of money. I mean, it may be only a couple of $100, but you're like, oh crap, I hope they sell. Shouldn't laugh. I'm laughing out of fear. But you know what I mean.
That was the whole point of the book. That's what 10th Man was going for. So you had another stream of revenue. So,
Indeed.
Gotta get that finished.
It'll be finished in good time, Neil. Don't you worry. But in the meantime,
Although
rather
me
than my point
buying
in this
10
instance
copies
is,
of the book, there's no question about that. But it's tough. And nobody has it tougher than a flat Earth channel. And you're really the only one, in my opinion, that still is holding true and keeping things straight and not buying into all the bullshit that's around. And it's it's a very clear message. It's a very clear. I love it.
you say that, I do have a bit of a tendency towards this idea that the world's melting and that we had a mud flood. Did you not like the idea of me covering? Sorry, I can't say it with a straight face.
Oh boy, that's funny. Yeah, if you talk about things like that, you'd have a ton of people.
But that's my attitude.
Interviews.
Exactly. The reason we're suppressed as heavily as we are is because we don't do that. Because the second I start talking about melted bricks and mud floods, people are like, look at these idiot flat earthers, look at what they talk about. And that'll be the thing that people debunk. Like that guy, that camp guy we covered a couple of days ago. He goes, I'm going to debunk flat earthers as a geologist. He goes to a video and starts talking about the cracks that are comparable to varnish. Like, this has got nothing to do with flat earth. I've got to make it about flat earth because we're talking about cracks perpendicular to a plane of reference. So they're using flat earth prerequisites. It's just like I was talking about with the comments. You just wait for them to use a flat earth prerequisite and then say, don't use our stuff.
Yeah, that usually comes in the first 5 seconds.
Yep. It didn't for that one, though, surprisingly. It took a while, didn't it, for him to get to perpendicular? Took him about 3 minutes.
He was one of the unique ones, let's say.
Well, he was just a waffler. He waffled on for 3 minutes about himself and how wonderful he was and his accreditations that he got and how smart he was as a result and how dumb flat earthers were when he was calling us names. Well, he got called fatty as a result, didn't he, for calling us flirfs?
Here in Switzerland, we're probably the least censored as far as Google searches are going. And on Friday, I did a search for truth about flat Earth or truth about Earth. And, you do not show up in any results, nowhere. But I did do a search for measuring flat Earth, or how Earth is measured. And you came up, you were in 4th place. Can you believe it?
No way. No, well, that does cheer me up. I did notice that after I moaned like a drain about censorship, literally the next 2 videos did quite well. Both of them went over 1,000 views. And I'm like, well, isn't that interesting? I moan like a drain about Google censoring the hell out of me, and then the next couple of videos go over 1,000 views. How interesting. What I don't get in views on each individual video, I make up for in quantity. So I put out a lot of videos.
I thought it interesting, though, that when I put in the word truth, forget it. You didn't show up. I mean, not in the first 1,000. You didn't show up at all. But when I hit the main theme, the one theme that we've been concentrating on, and that we've that your channel is really getting set on, and where the Globers can no longer win, and that is measurement. And when that is put into the search, then you come up.
It's because
Simon and Dan came
it's the
first.
same for everyone. Everyone's measuring it flat, right? There aren't any exceptions. Yeah. It bucks the game. The game is talk about anything other than measurements, because the measurements are all flat for everyone always, without exception. So if you can make it about mud floods, how far we see, you can whistle past the prerequisite requirement for a horizontal linear distance measurement to describe how far we shouldn't be able to see past Earth curve. It's like, if you can ignore the bit where we measure Earth flat in a linear horizontal distance, there's an argument to have. A guy called Michael, who supports me financially, got in touch via email to say that he'd been on Jesse Lee Peterson's show. The guy I said, is he dead? There was another guy that was another black guy who I think is the guy I'm thinking of. I just can't remember his name. And he actually used to cover relationship talk. That's the guy I was thinking of when I suggested Jesse Lee Peterson had died. He hasn't. But yeah, Michael was on his show, and while I was talking to Craig just before we started recording, I was actually recording a clip from him. I just haven't had a chance to assess it. I was doing something else with Craig while I was recording it. Again, doing too many things all at once.
Michael Kahn?
I don't want to give his surname because he hasn't given it out, and it's just Michael. Michael's enough.
Okay.
But no. Although I did drop Michael Kahn a line via Teams the other day. I don't think did he get back to me? I don't think he did. But I'm often in. I like his psalms. I don't know if you've been watching them. He does a psalm a day.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, I really like that because I haven't got enough time. I haven't got time to read a Bible. You know, like I keep saying, I haven't got time to do anything. I keep doing more than one job at once, which is never good because you don't give anything your full attention. But to get 30 seconds to 2 minutes worth of a bit of Bible, you're like, oh, that's really sweet. And yesterday it was actually Paula, like Bible U, Paula.
Yeah, see, it works opposite. Remember how you say an apple a day keeps the doctor away? Well, a psalm and a proverb a day puts the devil on your heels.
Puts the devil on your heels?
Yes. Anytime you get close to God, you better believe the enemy's right behind you. Sort of like the Mike Tyson saying, because that's who he's after. It's the ones that are shaking the foundations of hell.
Who is he talking to? I told that to my wife yesterday.
Don't remember. But yeah, he gets that from Scripture. Those that are seeking God and getting blessed and walking with God, they'll get hit the worst. Look at the story of Job. He lost everything in an hour. His whole family.
You're off mute, Jardo. Jardo. I'm just going to mute the whole hangout and just unmute yourselves. Where's my mute button? I don't know where it is anymore. Oh, there it is. Mute all. Am I still... No, I'm not muted. Jolly good. You'll have to unmute yourself if you want to talk in G+.
And the reason why
I'm muted.
happened, Job.
Sorry, say again, Jardo.
I was muted. Was I off mute?
Yeah, you were, but it's okay. I knew that there was somewhere in G+ the facility to just mute everybody. I just don't very often use it. Probably been a year since I've had to use that button. It's all good now.
Oh, my bad.
That's okay. We're in the pre-show, so I don't care. I mean, I do, but...
Are you familiar with the story of Job, Nathan?
Probably. You'll have to remind me, though. Not enough to say, yeah, and then recite chapter and verse. No.
Is the one where the devil presented himself before God, and God said to him, have you considered my servant Job, righteous in every way, and loves me, and on and on and on. He says, yeah, because you've blessed him, and nothing can touch him. But take away everything you got, and he'll curse you to your face. And God says, okay, do what you got to do, but you can't kill him. And then all these evil things happen to Job. He lost everything. Even his kids died in a freaking like tornado of some sort.
Wow.
But story goes on where Job did not curse him, and even his wife said, curse God and die already, and he would not. He even had 3 friends that were claiming that he had to do something wrong in his life, that all of this happened. He was being punished by God. but it wasn't. It was just that he was walking close to God. So that's what Tyson is talking about. You feel like you're getting blessed, and you feel like everything's great, and you're walking with God. The devil's right on your heels.
Yeah, it sent shivers down my spine when he did it with that guy, though. So he's on a podcast and he's saying to this fighter, "Do you feel like you're doing well?" Yeah, yeah. "Do you feel like God's watching you?" "Oh, definitely." He says, "Do you feel blessed?" "Yeah." "Like God's right watching over you, making sure you do well?" "Yeah, definitely." "Then the devil's right behind you. He's watching you too."
Yeah, he has a way with words, Tyson, doesn't he?
Yeah, very much so. Well, like I say, it sent a shiver down my spine when he said it. It's because he's not wrong.
What are we going to do today?
I don't know.
Got a video?
I've got no plans. I haven't got any plans to do anything. This is it. This will be the live show as well. We'll just keep chatting. There's plenty of people in Discord as well, which is nice.
I haven't seen Chalk in a while.
No, I suppose not. He's probably working.
Yeah, but he hasn't. Eli either. I haven't seen Eli in a bit.
I connected with several people that I hadn't connected with for ages yesterday. So I connected with Paula, Bible U, Anthony Riley, and Mitchell from Australia all in one day. And I hadn't spoken to any of them for ages. And they were all really nice to me. You know what I mean?
When you say those are all really nice, are they not normally nice to you?
I mean, you lose touch with people and then you go, oh, well, have they fallen out with me? You don't know. There might be a reason why you just haven't been in touch with them for ages. So when you get in touch and go, can you offer me advice on X out of the blue? You don't know if they're going to go, get lost. I fell out of you because of this. Or you said this on a show and I didn't like it, so I haven't spoken to you. Get lost. You just don't know. Not that I would expect Paula or Anthony or Mitchell to do that, but you just don't know, do you?
No, I think sometimes you make connection with people, and I don't speak to them for years. But I know if I was in trouble and they were about, they'd be on. They'd come round straight away.
Well, that's Anthony. Anthony's very much like that. He's been a very good friend over the years, and sometimes you lose touch, and he's not on the show, and you don't speak to him, and he's got his own stuff going on. And then when you do, like yesterday, he's just immediately all over what I asked him to do for me. Immediately. I'm like, bloody hell. Same with Mitchell, I told him that as well. I'm like, bloody hell, it's so nice you find out who your friends are and they're just what you expect that person to be like when you reach out to them and you need a bit of help with something. And they're just immediately extremely accommodating and helpful and nice. Not like I say that you would expect Mitchell in this case to not be, but people are. People do betray you. People are scummy sometimes. So, it's not always the case that people will behave as you expect them to. And it's nice when not only meeting expectations, but exceeding them. You do that a lot, actually, Craig. So, Maisie, you should pipe up. I don't want to make you embarrassed, but you do that all the time.
No, I think that's people's natural position. I mean, at the risk of upsetting Neil, I don't believe in the word sinners. I think everybody's pure. Everybody, you get corrupted as the world goes on. But everybody comes from a place of they want to do nice things for nice people. Nobody wants to go and shoot the neighbours. That's all a load of bullshit that we get taught, that we're some crazy apes.
There's a criminal
Not
that I
upsetting
watch.
me. I agree with you.
I just say this one thing. There's a criminal, I can't remember his name to credit him. I'll see if I can look him up. But he was saying he doesn't believe in bad people, pretty much like you've just said. He just believes in people making bad choices.
Yeah, to the corruption of the world. They agree 100%. You're not born to be evil. It's just that as you go through this corrupted world,
What was that? It said refracted curvature left the meeting. He wasn't in the meeting. Did he come and then just immediately fall out again?
Oh,
It said I looked up after looking away for 10 seconds and it said refracted curvature has left the meeting. I'm like, I didn't see him in the meeting.
yeah, he has internet issues for sure.
Ah, okay. So he's probably trying to join. Sorry to cut you off, Neil. What I'd quite like to do, if you're up for it, we did housekeeping yesterday, right? And some of it got linked back to people like Dave McKeegan and Simon Dan. What I would quite like to do, if possible, is go through housekeeping, but explain, like I just explained I do with my comments each day, which is look for the flat earth prerequisite. So in other words, housekeeping becomes almost like what our adversaries would put to us in a comment section, right? They're going to lean into everything that is housekeeping. Well, I want to push back against housekeeping in the way I do in my comments. That's to say, go through each one and say, here's where this particular housekeeping question has a flat earth prerequisite attached to it. So any evidence of gravity turns into perpendicular to a plane of reference if you're describing a downward force. Yeah?
That sounds good. What if they're talking about bending of space-time gravity?
Well, space-time's a much easier thing to debunk if someone's asserting it, because they very rarely assert time bending as their gravity because it doesn't give them a force. And to debunk it, you're just like, that's conceptual. Show me time. We did that yesterday. So I don't necessarily want to focus on Einsteinian bendy space-time, which is not a phenomena. That's what we covered on yesterday's show. I want to focus on the taught to kids in school downward vector, because down is a plane of reference prerequisite. Up, down, perpendicular, parallel, all of these things that one deck goes through. And rightly so. You know, that list that one deck came up with, I like lists, everyone likes lists, right? But coming up with a list of things that you can't use if you're a baller was very advantageous to me. Like I say, it helps me go through the comments quickly because of having that mindset. Here's a list of things that you can't say. And when I see one of them, you go, you can't use that. That's ours. Don't use flat earth prerequisites to pretend you're on a ball.
Yeah, that down, though, they claim that. What are you talking about? That's ridiculous. I could have a ball, I could have a beach ball, and I could drop a penny, and it goes right down on the beach ball. What do you mean I can't have down?
Yeah, well, it'd be perpendicular to a plane of reference then, wouldn't it?
But not in the case that I just said. It gives it's perpendicular to a point.
No, that's not what perpendicular is. At 90 degrees to isn't to a point, is it, Neil? So in other words, they offer an excuse that would work with a ball if it defied the axiomatic principle of perpendicularity. Yeah, they can try and make a point on a ball work with perpendicular. It just doesn't. At 90 degrees to. Well, you don't have that anywhere on a ball ever. Inside a ball, on a flat plane, perhaps that's on screen now, right? But their surface won't afford them that. What they actually have is in and out only. Now, when they describe space, that's how they describe it. Like, there's no up and down in space. That's a tacit acceptance of the unfortunate circumstances of pretending you're on a ball, that you don't have some of these axiomatic principles like up and down. You only have in and out.
Nathan, you don't understand large spheres. Once you get the understanding of a large sphere and you know how they work, you can have up and down on a large Earth-sized sphere because it's so big, it's flatty.
No, like on screen now, what? Tangential? Well, tangential requires a plane of reference be stuck to the side of a ball because balls don't have flat surfaces to be 90 degrees to, Neil. Can you see what's on screen now? You might have to grab your phone.
Yeah, I see what's on screen.
Right.
But that's a little picture. Picture the Earth as big as the Earth is, Nathan. It's so big that it's flat.
No. Curves aren't flat. Balls aren't flat. You have to defy what a ball is to make that suggestion, and it defies an axiom. You can't be perpendicular to a curve. You can be tangent to a curve, but that's a tangent. What's on screen? A tangent plane. So you need a plane. Why? Well, so you can transfer it in hell to the equatorial plane. Well, these are functionally how we know Earth gets measured, off a plane. Not off a curve. You can't measure from a curve. You can draw a tangent to a curve, but then you're drawing a plane of reference on a ball that you aren't measuring anymore.
Yeah, and then they don't realize it that when they do certain things and they clear, well, look, I'm getting a flat surface. Yeah, because you're on a flat surface. Everything that's taking place is on the flat surface of Earth. You're just trying to conform it into a ball.
Yeah. Do you remember that guy maybe a year ago? Well, how else are we supposed to measure it?
Yeah.
Of course we measure it flat. What's wrong with that? That was his attitude. You're like, yeah, we do, don't we? Welcome to Flat Earth.
Yeah, there was a scripture I meant to tell you yesterday. When I find it, I'm going to send it to you in your messages. You read it when you got a chance.
You up? You're going to send me something in Teams?
Yes, it's a certain portion of scripture where David is speaking, because it's what he experienced. It's what actually happened to him, but it's also a prophecy of what happened to Jesus. And it ties in with Judas. And it's like, wow, I got to send this to Nathan. He'll get a kick out of this one, boy.
Tell me.
Yeah, give me 1 second. Let me get it.
Okay. Hey, Eli. I see you. Sneaking into Discord. Also, hello, Len. Hello, Diogo. Well, someone said, hello, Peaceful. Hello, Surf Daddy. Hello, Vaxi. Hello, Bushel.
Good morning, guys.
Morning.
Who was that? Chocolate?
No, that was Vaxi.
Good morning.
Hey, Bushel.
No, I know Vaxi's voice, but I thought I heard Chocolate. Oh, it must have been Eli.
No, Eli didn't respond, but he's in Discord. Busy chatting at women.
So wait a second. There's a third person that sounds like Chocolate and Eli? Oh, boy.
Hey, Len.
Hung up accidentally. Could have been me.
You don't sound anything like Chocolate or Eli.
Would you like me to?
Are you Northern, Len?
Yes. Not Newcastle.
Not Newcastle. Something wrong with being from Newcastle?
The whole Mackham and Geordie thing.
Fair enough.
But I'm neither. I'm from County Durham.
Very nice.
But anyway, I should upload more of those AIs for your entertainment later on. I've probably got another 25 that I did the other day.
Oh, okay. Backflips and all.
They're all as ridiculous as each other. But if you've got any ideas for anything AI you'd like producing, feel free to stick it in the text chat and I will endeavour to see it.
Cool. They are pretty freaky, aren't they? Let's be honest. Disturbing.
I found the scripture if you want me to read it.
Yeah, sure.
It says that this is David speaking about people that came up against him in a position he was in. He was very sick, and they were saying an evil disease cleaves to him. And then he says in verse 9, he says, yeah, my own familiar friend in whom I trusted, which did eat of my bread, has lifted up his heel against me. But thou, O Lord, be merciful unto me and raise me up that I might requite them.
What does requite mean?
I don't know. I'm thinking it might be avenge them. Let me look it up.
Okay. You
I
guys
think it means to return for a favor.
requite?
I think so, unless I spelt it wrong, which is definitely possible. Requite. Make appropriate return for, then in parentheses, a favor, service, or wrongdoing.
Right.
So it's saying, I'll return, if you've wronged me, I'll return the favour. Is that what it means?
Yeah, raise me up
I
so
guess
I
I
might
looked at it
requite
wrong.
them. The
Might
best
also
thing to
mean like
do with that
return.
is you read it from see, that's King James Version. Let me find like an American Standard Version, and
Go
we'll
ahead,
see
Surf
what the
Daddy.
word requite is then.
Yeah, go ahead, Surf Daddy. Well, Neil,
It is kind of like return the favor. And it might also mean return the favor in love, maybe.
I
But
would hope so. That's a nicer
appropriately-
sentiment. Like, return the
Yeah,
favour in love rather than in being horrible.
Yeah, it's not like go down to their level, but appropriately answer them. So
Yes.
that would be return the favor in truth, and give a good rebuttal, basically.
Yeah, which would require strength, right? Because to just retaliate in anger is easy. And natural. Like, it comes easily. Instinctually, almost.
You guys need to read Psalm 35.
You're not the boss of me.
Read that, and you tell me how that's return the favor in love.
Just read it, Neil.
Oh, that's a long one. I'm still in this one. I'm trying to find the NASB, but he talks about driving away his enemies as the angel of the Lord would chase them away. I was having issues. I was having issues when I was away, and if I didn't do something about it, there was going to be a problem. And I remember calling home, my brother telling me, "Why don't you just pray Psalm 35 over them?" I wasn't familiar with it. I was a new Christian at the time. And I prayed Psalm 35, and I put his name in every verse that I saw relating to him. And you know what happened? They took him out in a stretcher. Out of nowhere, the kid had a seizure, and he had him moved. And when he came back, he was on the other side of the prison wall. Like there was two sides, the A and the B side. So the Lord removed them away. There's no way anybody could tell me anything different.
Wow.
There's also a flip side of that like one of my favorite verses, and man, it can't come to my head exactly, but basically, if you return the favor, if you requite in love, it's like putting a millstone around their neck. It's like putting a flame of fire on their head. When you return a favor with love, like praying for your enemies, it actually convicts them. It puts them in a position where they're angry that you're not returning an eye for an eye, tooth for tooth, a cuss word for a cuss word.
All right,
You
let's
pray
take
for
the
them,
verse.
and
Let's
it
take the
makes
verse
them
we're
angry.
talking
Hold
about.
on. So if Daddy's not finished.
No, they're just basically it's like a burning flame of fire on their head when you're just nice to them. They're trying to beat you up, and you just like, "Aw, bless, that's nice. I'll pray for you," and that is actually more damning to them. They hate it when you do that.
Fair enough.
And next to Judas. And look what happened to Judas. Okay? End the story.
What happened to Judas?
He lost his mind and hung himself. All right? And he had his lot. That's what his purpose is for. He lifted up his heel against the Lord when the Lord told him the one that sticks his hand in his slop with me is the one that's going to betray me. He looked at the money and he betrayed Jesus with a kiss. All right? And his end was already destined for him. Just like Pharaoh's. So there's no praying in love there. Jesus told him, go do what you're going to do.
Right, but he didn't ask God to do it to them. He basically said, "Do what you got to do," and what he did was what got him his punishment. But you don't ask God to strike people down.
No.
Right? You just say, "Go do what you got to do." You're casting your own lot, and then the result is death or punishment or whatever.
Read some of David's encounters. Read some of the Chronicles encounters. I know we're under a grace period. Don't get me wrong, but tired of the mealy mouse Christians. I'm serious. Is it time to pick up the sword?
Yellow.
How are you?
All right.
Yellow.
Indeed. We were talking about Mike Tyson in the pre-show. Mike Tyson had a little discussion with another, I think he was an MMA fighter, but regardless, a fighter who's winning a lot. And he's asking this particular fighter, do you feel like you're doing well? And he's like, yeah. He's like, do you feel like the Lord's watching over you? And the guy pauses and he's like, yeah, I do. He says, do you feel blessed? Says, yeah, I really, really do feel blessed and special and all those things. And Tyson says, well, then the devil's watching you too. That was the general sentiment of the pre-show. So if you've just tuned in and you were watching the pre-show up until this point, that will make perfect sense. Lots of Bible verses being quoted back and forth. That's just how it's been on the pre-show. Sometimes it's very Christian in terms of what we do in the pre-show. And today was one of those days. Uplifting it's been. I'll admit, I'm absolutely exhausted. I've only had a couple of hours sleep. So if I start slurring my words, it's not because I'm an alcoholic. I'm not. I don't even drink.
Yeah, you can't get around, talking about the reality we live in and not speaking about the Bible.
But you're going to say Mike Tyson. You can't get away from Mike Tyson when you're talking about the reality we live in.
Well, Mike Tyson lays it out raw the way it is. There's no, what do you call that? When you just say what you say, there's no filter on Mike Tyson. He just says it like it is, and that's it.
Yeah, it's a nice sentiment. Now, there is a suggestion for a video that we were covering, but I haven't actually heard back from Divergent Droid about the person that wanted to put it out there. I was quite critical of the argument that was going to be suggested to be played out on today's show. And with that in mind, what we will be doing is going through the housekeeping questions and talking about some of the flat Earth prerequisites that are linked to those questions in a moment. But to give you a general idea of what Divergent Droid had suggested we cover, it was a see-too-far argument, as in there's an observation from this particular point, and in the distance there's an object, and we're seeing too much of the object, therefore Earth's flat. That's the general position that's been taken in the argument. And my response was to say, well, if I do cover this, I'm going to be highly critical of that argument, which is to say that on the surface level, it would seem like there's an argument to have when you put it across that at X distance, there should be a geometric physical sphere edge for a horizon obscuring your view of whatever boat, building, island, whatever it is that's in the distance. And because we can see the bottom of said island, boat, building, we see, quote, too far, therefore Earth is not a sphere because we see too far, right? Now, 10 years ago, great obvious observation to point out in terms of the limitation to your field of vision at 1.22 times the square root of the observer's measured height off surface level. Flat Earth prerequisite number 1. What about distance to said obstructed item in linear, flat, horizontal miles or kilometres? Another flat Earth prerequisite that will be used alongside a parallel eye level in Earth curve mathematics to derive a dip angle to the geometric horizon below the surface level you measured for horizontal and linear distance and height perpendicular to a plane of reference. All of which are flat Earth prerequisites you must whistle past to have the we see too far argument. Further to that, to say we see too far is a complete misnomer. You don't see too far. The lens limits your view. Doesn't matter if it's your eye or a camera or a telescope. The lens is the limiting factor of how far you will see. So to say we are seeing too far implies that there should be an obstruction at a given distance when you've whistled past the flat Earth prerequisite linear miles or kilometres, perpendicularity when it comes to height off a plane, parallel eye level, all of the things that a flat Earth can only afford you have to be whistled past to have that argument, which is where we get the circumstance where we have a perceived argument about Earth which is measured flat in all circumstances. There isn't an argument. Earth's just measured flat. Even when you think you're on a ball and want to suggest that there's a limitation to your view, or if you're a flat earther falling victim to the notion that we can assert flat Earth, perpendicularity, horizontal distance and parallel eye level to suggest that there's a limitation to our view at 1.22 times the square root of the observer's measured height of a flat Earth. Ludicrous. We shouldn't be doing that anymore as flat earthers. Just know where all measurements of Earth are flat, even if you're going to assert there's a limitation to your view in Earth curve mathematics. That's Earth curve mathematics when utilised by a ball believer, will require Earth be measured flat to assert the linear horizontal distance in kilometres or metres and the height off surface level. All of which are flat Earth prerequisites. Once you establish them as flat Earth prerequisites, you don't need to have the argument. You don't need to point out how far we see or what the limitations suggested to be in an Earth curve maths that measures Earth flat, because it measures Earth flat. That was the first housekeeping question dealt with, but I'll do it after the fact. So any evidence of a physical geometric sphere edge for a horizon, flat Earth prerequisites, the three that I just went through, are the upshot that you as a flat earther, if you are listening to this, should take on board if you hear an assertion that there is a limitation to your view at 1.22 times the square root of the observer's height in feet as laid down in the, begging the question, proof of nothing, perspective hijacking Earth curve calculator. Rather than arguing about where the limitation to the view is, and then have your opponent take you to refraction, point out that to have this discussion in the first place, they, that's the person putting the Earth curve maths to you in this format, must accept a flat Earth prerequisite linear horizontal distance measurement, or parallel height off surface level, perpendicular height off surface level, or parallel eye level, if I can get the order correct. So don't have the argument. You understand, ball believer, that we will measure Earth flat to have this discussion of where the claim to be limitation of a geometric sphere edge below surface level will be. Well, we'll need a surface level, we'll need a parallel eye level, and we'll need to measure our height perpendicular to a plane of reference. That's 3 flat Earth measurements that we must make to use Earth curve maths. So we don't need Earth curve maths, we need to measure Earth flat. That's the only measurements that are going to take place. All measurements of Earth are flat, even if you want to assert Earth curve mathematics. You still need to measure Earth flat. At which point, your opponent, the ball believer, will either do one of 2 things. Number 1, sink to his knees, or hers, in acknowledgement of the flat Earth we must measure to utilise Earth curve mathematics. At which point you've measured Earth flat and that's the end of the discussion. Earth's measured flat. Or they can relinquish their measurements of Earth and its surface level, parallel eye level and perpendicularity for height above surface level, and say that no, we don't have a parallel eye level and surface level, in which case they can't functionally utilise their own mathematics. And they haven't got any measurements anymore. That's called the hard place. The rock being an acceptance of the flat Earth prerequisite elevation angle, eye level and surface level that will and can only be measured. Earth is measured flat. We checked. Even for Earth curve maths.
Exactly, Nathan.
Unless you measure it locally 1,000 times flat and then come around and claim the Earth is a ball.
Like Simon Dan, you mean?
Yeah.
That's got to sting, right? Having us discuss how Simon Dan measured Earth flat and has to, as a result, quote Simon Dan, we don't only measure Earth flat, end quote, Simon Dan. Why would he say such a thing? Because he's measuring Earth flat 1,000 times and needs to explain and apologise why he's measuring Earth flat 1,000 times. So we don't only measure Earth flat? Well, actually we do only measure Earth flat. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to go through each of the housekeeping questions and point out where the flat Earth prerequisite resides in each of those questions. We did do some of this yesterday, but we were like we just did now, and I said we wouldn't, linking it to people like Simon Dan. I just want to link it to the general argument today. I mean, I'm not going to stop you if you link it to Simon Dan or, you know, Dave McKeegan measuring the Earth flat for a 24-hour period in Antarctica. I keep forgetting Simon Dan and both Dave did measure Earth flat with elevation angles, but Dave Fugly McKeegan couldn't quite cope with his own tripod. But for the fact that he was outsmarted by his own tripod, Dave McKeegan would have measured Earth flat for a 24-hour period. I just keep forgetting that he couldn't quite cope with his own equipment. My bad. So, with yesterday's show, we covered gravity in terms of the easy to debunk conceptual fourth-dimensional space-time medium not having a phenomena to study. But today I want to focus on, with gravity at least, the taught to kids in school downward vector perpendicular to a plane gravity that asserts there's an always in effect force of down, ignoring the fact that gas comes out of the ground and goes up in defiance of mass attracting mass, as is taught to school children. But to assert this downward vector, they're using one of the words that you're not allowed to use if you're a ball believer. You don't have down on a ball that's perpendicular to a plane of reference at 90 degrees to horizontal. That's what a downward vector is. So Newtonian gravity, if you're going to assert it, requires a plane of reference. Don't get down on a ball.
Well, again, Nathan, even if she was on that subject with somebody, yeah, you do need down is you'll need a horizontal reference frame for down. They're presuming that things are being dragged into the centre of the core of the Earth because it's a sphere. So then you can automatically just get onto the subject. Well, let's establish how that sphere was measured. It'll always come back to that in any of the questions that you're going to ask, because it's always a presupposition of a globe. So let's get that out of the way. How was your globe measured? And then you'll soon find out that it was measured flat.
Greeks all knew that.
Yeah, they did exactly what Simon Dan Sosthenes did and measured angles using sticks and shadows. I mean, it has to be flat for horizontal shadows, obviously.
Not went down well in the comment section of yesterday's video. Al Baruhif.
Did it? Yeah. Brilliant.
Al Baruhif. Yeah, very funny. Just out of interest. How's that geometric horizon working out for you, Rufy? Good? Working out well? Oh, we do have a laugh. We've done flat Earth prerequisites in the form of the Earth curve mathematics, and we've done Newtonian downward vectors perpendicular to a plane of reference. What should we do next? Let's go through all of the housekeeping questions and talk about the flat Earth prerequisites that are required for each. There is one. Maybe we'll do the one that I've immediately sprung to mind as perhaps not having one, because it bases itself, the question that is, on the presuppositional ball Earth being in effect. So any evidence of a self-perpetuating molten iron core at the centre of a said presupposed spherical Earth. I've said it and immediately one deck's already answered this 25 seconds ago, hasn't he?
Yeah, I mean, you're saying there's a molten iron core at the centre of a presupposed spherical Earth?
Well, I'm asking if there's any evidence, but yes.
Well, you'll need evidence of the globe first. Have you got any?
Well, in order to create a globe to believe in, I'd need to measure a flat Earth to derive a radial value. So my globe will be measured flat to put it into presuppositional effect by bastardizing the flat Earth measurement that derives the radial value that gets made spherical. And if you suggest that you're on that surface spherically, you're violating the base principle measurement that created that spherical surface mathematically. So you're going to need a flat Earth to suggest there's a molten iron core to beg the question of a globe Earth with a molten iron core. So fortunately for me, when it popped into my head as being one that doesn't need a presuppositional or prerequisite flat Earth measurement, it absolutely does. Any ball prerequisite, as you point out, requires you measure Earth flat, one deck.
Exactly. You can always bring it back to that point. And this is what I was saying to the guys yesterday, where we was talking about knowing the argument of the heliocentric model, which we've never seen, and knowing each side of the story, inside out. But I find myself, if I get into the wrangle-tangle of talking about gravity or molten iron cores or orbital motions, I automatically just go straight down to this situation. What we're talking about is, well, okay, you live on a globe, you're stating you live on a globe. Let's talk about who measured it, when it was measured, and what equipment was used. Let's just get that out the way. Then once we've got the globe evidence, then we can start talking about all the other things attached to it. But that's what we need first, the globe Earth measurements, which you'll find out will be flat Earth measurements. Then that just wipes everything else out the window attached to the globe.
Yeah, as soon as you get to the nitty-gritty of how the actual surface of Earth gets measured, flat for all measurements, you're then into the rock and the hard place, not debating about whether or not there's a self-perpetuating molten iron core at the said centre of the said presupposed spherical Earth that you'll have to measure flat to create. You just at the rock where you measure Earth flat to create it, or deny the measurements, aka hard place, at which point your opponent's either got to accept that you're measuring Earth flat to create the ball, to have the presupposition. Do you remember back in the day when we praised the fact that we managed to get Mick West to admit that the R value is presupposed? Well, in reality, having us stop at the point of presupposition and just say, well, you lose because it's a fallacy to presuppose your radial value, was actually, as weird as it is to say this now, 7 or 8 or 9 years later, that actually worked to their advantage. No wonder Mick West was happy to concede that, yeah, we assume radial value. Yes, it's a presupposition, but that's just us pointing out fallacy as opposed to pointing out how that presupposition actually comes to fruition. Measuring Earth flat.
Yeah, but their pre-assumption is a calculation, not a pre-assumption.
Yes, that's where I was going next.
That is derived from measurements off a flat plane. So they need a geometry that's 180 degrees opposite from the geometry they then need to claim.
Or to put it another way, you need the actual measurements of Earth's flat surface to be able to be back calculated into the ball when you're asserting the ball is being utilised functionally. It isn't, but it must, quote unquote, work with the real measurements. Right, Brian?
Well, when they say real measurements, there's no other types. Is there a different one from real? It's just measurements. So I don't know how to respond to that.
I'm saying that when you suggest
all measurements are real.
And what I mean is when you describe ball Earth calculations, then those must function with the actual real world measurements, and they are the flat measurements of Earth's surface that I've just described as being back calculatable when you infer from the outset that the ball is what we use in its origin. We use flat Earth measurements, but they must function with their calculated ball.
Well, the actual measurements of the measurements of Earth have been used in a massive gaslighting scandal. That's the actual best way to put it. You know, how Earth is measured has been used in a massive gaslighting scandal. If you want to get the absolute truth, it's a psychological operation.
With a massive black hole.
Not the answer you're looking for there now.
No, it is the answer I'm looking for, because it ties directly into what you were telling us yesterday when we were chatting about NASA.
Well, yeah, I mean, to calculate a globe right into existence mathematically, like they needed to, first of all, measure the Earth and measure it to enough of an accuracy that they could then use those measurements or hijack them and create a globe out of those measurements by appealing to people's ignorance in one way, but also with repetition. It's also a willpower thing. Is that they want to, through willpower, somehow gaslight you into thinking that you live right on an Earth that is 180 degrees opposite from the reality you experience. And they've done a very, very good job of that.
It's inversion. That's satanic.
Well, it's manipulative. That's for sure.
Making black seem like white and front seem like back, and this inversion, this inverted world that we live on, if we suggest sphericity, is a satanic inversion of the reality as you've just described it. Now, you might not like me directly tying it to Satan, but I'll tie it back to NASA instead.
But it is.
I just don't want to necessarily label that point live.
Describe it any way you like.
Yeah. In reality, the thing I want to get back to, which is what I suggested initially, was what you were talking about with NASA, because it's quite profound how you described it to me yesterday. I don't think it was on one of the shows. I think it was one of the phone calls we were having. But you were saying there's this enormous black hole of money that is NASA. And when anybody's attacking this subject matter from the perspective of, in our case, flat Earth measurements, we've almost shied away from it because it's almost inconsequential when you talk about the sky vacuum, which we'll get to shortly. But as you just put it, Brian, it's the biggest psyop in existence. It's the biggest black hole of money in existence. And it's been going for a huge amount of time. So if the world found out, what would be the consequences? I'm trying to lead you in a way that I can't get to a point where I'm leading you well.
No, I know where you're going. I'll help you out with it. Yeah, I know. I don't mean that in a smart way. I'm just saying that. Yeah, I understand where you're going. Well, let's just start with the Earth itself, right? Is there any part of the heliocentric globe paradigm that doesn't lend itself to being the complete opposite to what we actually experience? No. Every single part of it is the complete opposite to what we actually experience. But we're told that that is the truth, that we think and we assume through experience that we're living on a flat stationary plane, when really we're living on a rotating sphere, right? We think that the celestial bodies are moving when it's actually they're stationary and we're moving, with the exception of the moon in their paradigm. So this is what they use. So they have you psychologically from birth, because it doesn't matter if you have a mobile, someone has a mobile above their cot of the stars and the moon and all, the sun, like Chocolate said he had as a kid, and many people have had. That doesn't matter whether you have that or not, because you're growing up in a world that is constantly indoctrinating itself, and everyone's indoctrinating everyone else. So I'm indoctrinating you, Nathan, when I call at your house and start talking to you about something that's happening out in aerospace, heliocentric aerospace, and you're indoctrinating me when you're telling me about some movie that's coming out and it's taking place on Mars or whatever, right? So this is all it's like a completely repetitive indoctrination of each other, as well as the overlord indoctrination that we deal with. Now, at the root of all that, if we get down to the brass tacks of, like, rather than where it originated from, so let's say the word Kepler on that for the minute. We have a situation where we have an institution in the United States, and they're all across the world, but they're in the United States. They're called NASA. Now, I remember hearing 10 years ago that they were getting $50 million a day, right? And that they used to get more, supposedly, back in from the 60s to the 80s. Now, if you go back to when NASA first formed, and you think about the amount of money that's been funneled into NASA, we're going back now to when John F. Kennedy was the president of the United States. So that's way back in the 60s, late 50s into early 60s, right? If you take that, right, that time frame right up to now, let's just say we'll go from 60, let's say 1960, 1970, 1980, 1990, 2000, 2010, 2020, you're talking 65 years that NASA have had money put into them basically on a daily or weekly basis. Now, besides all the operations that go on in NASA, all the people they pay like as employees and all their whatever, I know they have to pay for all these things that they do, right? All these kind of, everyday tasks or whatever they're building or whatever. And they might send a few rockets up into the air, right? Grand, right? Big, huge scene, brilliant, right? Over the decades. But outside of that, all they've ever given, right, was mock-ups and CGI, right? That's all they've ever given the world. So how much of that money that they get on a daily basis for 65 years possibly now, right? You could say safely 60 years, but you could say 65 considering John F. Kennedy was talking about them in 1963 and prior, and talking about them going to the moon, which they claimed to do in 1969. How much of that money went to other places? Because it didn't go into spaceships going to heliocentric outer space. So technically, and this was my point yesterday, when people in the US complain about the money that's going to countries like Israel or the Ukraine, right, and how they're black holes where the money is being used incorrectly, or it's been, with like the likes of the Ukraine, it was shown to be basically a scam where a lot of that money was coming back to the US, but it was coming back to more private accounts or whatever, right? So it was just money laundering kind of thing. How much money has been laundered, right, and passed through the filter of NASA's financial black hole? I mean, like Israel, whatever money goes from the US to Israel or goes from the US to the Ukraine or to the Contras or whatever over the decades, it is absolutely pennies. It's a nothing in comparison to NASA. The amount of money that's gone into NASA and especially in recent years, because in the past 10 years, NASA is going to step back. The likes of Elon Musk and the Amazon guy, what's his name, Jeff Bezos, have stepped forward with their SpaceX and their Blue Origin and all this. And even what's his name with Virgin Media, right, has stepped forward, and they're kind of pushing their space stuff now. And you've China, Branson stuff. China is doing a bit of space stuff in Japan and God knows what. But it's in the end of the day, nothing compares to NASA. as a black hole of money. So how much money has been laundered through NASA? How much money has gone into NASA but actually gone other places, whether it be private accounts, whether it be black operations, God knows what, right? What they've done with it. But it's certainly not going to build rockets and spacecraft to go off out into heliocentric outer space, which is a violation of entropy. You know what I mean? That's not happening. So if we, like, we're far more dangerous than we realize. Even though it's everyday stuff for us, arguing with the borders, people in Discord, blah, 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 on YouTube, X, whatever, TikTok, we don't realize that what we could cause as an undercovering could be let's say, shining a massive light onto NASA's financial situation. And if America, the American people, besides all the other facets of uproar to what happened in the world, if they all actually realized and accepted that they were all being duped for decades, for hundreds of years at this stage with the globe, but that NASA have been continually taking money from the American taxpayer. And what are they giving them in recent years? In recent years, the best that NASA has given is reasonably okay, you know what I mean, AI or CGI. So where's all that money gone to? Where's it gone to? Do you know what I mean? Someone has it, it's gone somewhere, and it's certainly not gone into space missions. Besides the old rocket they might have built.
Did you look behind the fridge?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, Brian.
But it's true.
Brian, they did develop memory foam in the 60s.
Microwaves, Velcro.
Yeah, Velcro. Yeah. See, this is the thing. What has NASA? It's a bit like the joke in the movie Life of Brian. What has NASA ever actually done for us?
The aqueduct.
The aqueduct. Yeah. Basically, NASA have done nothing. What have they done for the people of America outside of giving them false hope and false belief that they were after conquering some great feat by going to the moon, which they didn't do?
I did see a dude with a beard singing.
That's why we're public enemy number one.
I saw a dude with a like guitar strumming the Bowie song, "Ground Control to Major Tom." Remember that? They gave us that, didn't they? That was pretty good.
Oh, the ISS.
Oh, the ISS, yeah, you got it.
And scratch-resistant glasses.
Yeah, but that's not about space. That's about a junkie. We know Major Tom's a junkie.
But
what do you mean Major Tom's a junkie? Next thing you'll be telling me is Puff the Magic Dragon's got something to do with anything other than dragons.
What NASA have given us, what they have given us is a very nice story, isn't it? And what they have done, technically, if you want to get technical about it, besides financial things, what they've actually done is completely opposed Albert Einstein. Completely opposed general relativity. Completely. So, and NASA are in direct opposition to Albert Einstein, special and general relativity. Because they show what could only be described as some depiction of a force of gravity that was thrown out the window in 1915 when Albert Einstein's, not exactly in 19, but once his general relativity came out, it took a while for people to come around to it. But, they threw that out. Any Newtonian, incorrectly named Newtonian force of gravity, because I don't want to give that to Newton because he denied it. Any incorrectly claimed Newtonian force of gravity was thrown out the window. Yet, right, 54 years later, that's 1915 to 1969, 54 years later, I think it is, NASA bring it back to come back. Do you know what I mean? It's like, do you know what I mean? It's like, that force of gravity is back. And ever since, they've been teaching that gravity is two things, and now three things or four things, over to people in colleges and schools and high schools and universities for decades now. So nobody knows what the hell it is because they keep teaching people different things.
Well, I mentioned Anthony Riley in the pre-show before you got here, I think, Brian, and that was one of the things that he actually did. He went to the education minister here in the UK. I think he went all the way up to the Prime Minister, actually. He was pushing it through because there was something going through the education Reform Act or something like that, and it was an in for him to start pointing out that there's an out-of-date, 100 and almost 11 years out-of-date, Newtonian, down with a respect to a plane of reference perpendicular to it, force of gravity that is not real. It's been superseded by Einsteinian bending pseudo-Riemannian fourth-dimensional space-time. Now, bearing in mind that this is Anthony Riley, a flat earther through and through, appealing to a government minister to just be up to date with their own heliocentric rhetoric. He's not even saying, look, Earth's flat, there is no gravity, there's no downward bias, and conceptual time bendings are nonsense. That's not what he was doing. He was saying, why are you, the government, approving the education of small children with a out-of-date, 110-year, at the time it was 108 years out of date, force, which it's not, of gravity, when there's a superseded version, or it has been superseded by a different version, by Einstein? Why aren't you teaching kids what it really is in your own rhetoric, which he didn't add? He's not trying to bias his own attempt to get the education to be reformed with the actual heliocentric rhetoric of bent spacetime. Now, did he get anywhere? No. But it's pretty egregious when you've got kids being lied to, and it's not just a lie about heliocentrism, it's a lie within a lie, because it's not downward vectors with respect to a plane anymore. There is no force of gravity. The idea that mass attracts mass was superseded by bent space-time and is defied by gas behaviour. Gas fills space, it comes out of the ground and goes away from it. It's not attracted by the mass of Earth. It's nonsense. Hence, they supersede it. But as Brian points out, they're on a bit of a sticky wicket when they're describing and demonstrating Newtonian gravity on a claim to be surface of the moon after travelling through a second law of thermodynamics violation sky vacuum.
Well, the thing is, they can't throw it out. And this is what I said back in 2019 when I first said it. That they can't throw that out the window. They can't throw out the claimed force of gravity right out the window. And to support that, so people know, before Anthony did that, there was a guy that I came across online, and would you believe I can't find the guy again. I can't find the articles about the guy.
Did you look behind the fridge?
Sorry?
Did you look behind the fridge?
No. It's always in the last place you look. But no, this guy is an
Let's stop rumpusing. I've done it. I get away with it. You don't. Go ahead, Brian.
Yeah, this guy is an astrophysicist. He's an English lad, and he's an astrophysicist. And I think he teaches at a university, or he works at a university or something like that in the UK, somewhere in the UK. But he was going around primary schools, which would be junior schools or whatever in the US, and trying to teach the kids that when they hear that gravity is this force of attraction between, like, what they term as two masses, right? That it's not. And he was trying to teach him that it's general relativity. And he tried to get, this guy was trying at the time, a kind of a revolution within the education system in the UK to be correct, right? That was old and busted and it was gone, right? They don't, because he's an astrophysicist, so he's talking about special and general relativity. And now they're on to quantum gravity and whatever other nonsense. But the point is that he knew that what the incorrectly termed Newtonian force of gravity is all and busted. He didn't get anywhere either, obviously. And the reason he didn't is because, as I said several years ago, I think it was 2019 when I first said it, that they can't allow that in. They can't recognize that there is no force of gravity, because then it's obvious that the moon landings didn't happen. Because what they're showing in the moon landings and every other piece of claimed astronauts in space footage from the ISS and every other claimed space agency, what they're showing is people with under a lesser influence of a force of gravity. So they are on the moon, the gravitational attraction to the center of the moon, based off of its heliocentric size, is less than on the globe Earth. So the astronauts weighed less. Same claimed mass, right, whatever that is, but their weight was less. They cannot allow people like this guy or Anthony to tell the truth, right? This is the ironic thing. They can't even allow the truth of their own paradigm to be mainstay because they have to lie within their own paradigm to keep their own paradigm on the tracks. Because if they don't, the moon landings are over. It'll be obvious that the whole thing was a fraud and is a fraud up to today. Because right now, today, you can probably go on a live stream and you'll be told you're on a part of a live stream coming straight from the ISS, and there's all these people floating around because there's less gravitational force that doesn't exist in their paradigm. So they can't.
We need more people.
It's also in the science museums. So if you go to, this is going back a while, but with group, it's Sun and Moon or something group, a whole bunch of us went to the Space Center. I can't remember where it is now. It's going back so many years. But one of the exhibits that they had was to show all of the different forces of gravity on the different planets. And they had it demonstrated with a bean tin, like a baked bean tin. And for you guys in the States, you probably don't have baked beans, just a can, like a tin can. And let's just say peaches rather than beans, so it's easier to imagine. But you've got your tin of peaches, and then it says, this is how much it would weigh on Earth. And you pick it up and you're like, yeah, that feels like a can of peaches. And then you go, this is how it would feel on Mars. And you pick it up and you go, oh, that's really light. And then as you go along all the planets, it's showing the demonstrated downward perpendicularity to a plane of reference force of Newtonian gravity. So this all has to get kicked out the window. And as Brian's correctly pointed out and identified, you can't.
So you were being indoctrinated when you go to these places and you're picking up a can of peaches that's so light. So but what if more people like Anthony Riley and this guy that you can't find anymore, Brian, started putting pressure on these schools?
Wouldn't make any difference.
And the school and the education system.
But it's the incest that they have to pretend didn't happen. What I mean?
The incest, did you say? Incest?
Yeah, incest.
You know what incest means?
I do, yeah.
Okay.
That's but you don't understand what I mean. Within their paradigm, they have to pretend that this didn't happen. As in general relativity didn't, right, completely replace all of the incorrectly termed Newtonian force of gravity. Right? They have to pretend that didn't happen. So that's like the incest that they're pretending never took place.
Not only that, though, Brian, that's a good point you made. It's, you know, they can't let that go because it'll reveal them. But in the same note, that will also reveal how the claim of Newtonian gravity could have never been put through the scientific method in the first place. And then you can move on to that. Kids aren't being taught the correct scientific method.
Well, you could. There was a claim. Now, I don't believe this, right? I stopped believing this a long time back, I think. But there's a claim that an apple fell onto Isaac Newton's head. So that's a naturally observed effect. Apple falls from tree. You can test that and see, right, if the apple will always go down, right? And in different mediums. And you'll find it won't. You'll find in the medium of water, it'll go up. So they could have tested this, right, through scientific method, and they could have disproved that their claimed force was actually real at all. Which is why one day they had to hijack buoyancy, which is 1900 years before even the birth of Isaac Newton. Why did they need to hijack Archimedes and the Archimedes principle? Because that's the thing that debunked their claimed force. So suddenly, Archimedes' principle is all due to the force of down. That's why things go up.
You'll need a plane of reference for that.
Yeah.
Yeah, down, up. If the apple's rising up through a lake, so they flood an area. I'm just trying to think of a scenario where an apple tree's underwater. They flood an area and the apple comes off the tree because it's been flooded and goes up. Well, up is a direction with respect to a plane of reference. If it's falling off the tree in air, it's moving down with respect to a plane of reference. In other words, these all require a plane of reference. If you get into argumentation from a flat Earth perspective, I mean, about this, I just wanted to wait right till the very end so I didn't get your goat, Brian, because I've done it so many times in the past. Interrupt halfway through the actual example you're making to point out a plane of reference.
Yeah, but it's a bit of a sidebar. I mean, it's a bit of a red herring. It's true from a geometric point of view, it's true. But, and yeah, down and up are in reference to a horizontal plane of reference. That's true, 100%. But for me, what I would focus, up to you, you do whatever you want, it's your show. But I would only focus on the fact that the down force doesn't happen to the apple in water. So that means there isn't a force of constant down. Do you know what I mean?
Almost a verbatim quote from Cox. Sorry, just drop it in while it's still pertinent. Sorry, just one sec. It was just you said almost a direct verbatim quote from Cox, which was, "There isn't really a force of gravity at all." End quote. Professor Brian Cox.
Yes, because the apple isn't being pulled towards the center of the sphere. Because we're not on one. That's simple.
Well, you need some measurements for that.
Well, yeah, but
here we go.
Yeah, you're missing the point. You're going to think the red herrings. It's not the time for the red herrings.
Yeah,
right?
one deck.
Anyway, even if it's correct, it's a red herring, right? Because in the end of the day, right, if the apple is not going down in water, that means there isn't a constant force of down pulling the apple down towards the center of the globe Earth. That means they don't have the needed force that they need to claim, right, is keeping everything attached to a rotating sphere in a vacuum, including air. So that all goes out the window. Now they don't have that. Now that's another reason why they don't want to throw it out, besides the NASA reason, which is just a more obvious reason. This is a secondary reason that's far more damning, but it's not as obvious as the NASA reason. The point being is that if things are not being pulled down by a force, and they're not, right, then they're not being pulled towards the center of the globe, which means the same of a heliocentric globe Earth rotating and orbiting in a vacuum with an air pressure around it, they call an atmosphere, is all directly thrown out the window. Yeah, you don't even need to talk about the geometry of whether they have a measurement for this globe. If they require the force for the globe, the force they had to throw out that didn't work for them as they expanded their heliocentric style universe. They had to throw it all out the window.
Yeah,
they don't want to talk about it.
The hypothesis was incorrect, and they didn't follow the scientific method through correctly, was my point.
What hypothesis? What hypothesis?
That everything is being pulled down to the centre of Earth. The apple was being put, like you've just explained, Brian.
Yeah, but they didn't even have a hypothesis. That's just a straight claim. This is the thing. They didn't test to see if that was happening. That's just a claim they have.
Yeah, that's my point.
I mean, yeah.
Go on, one deck.
I'm saying that's the point I'm making.
Yeah, but I have to be anal about this, right? A claim of a force and a hypothesis that involves the pre-assumption of a possible force is two different things. Because the hypothesis would be the testing of the pre-assumption, right? I think there could be a force pulling the apple down. That's why it's going down, right? That would be a testing of it. That is what they're doing, is ignoring all testing of their ideas, right, or their pre-assumptions, and just going with them. Do you know what I mean? They're just running with it. You know, that's why they keep on having to change their paradigm constantly, because they just run with things. And when something ends up running into a brick wall, they just come up with a new thing and they run with that. They don't test anything. So from a scientific point of view, if you're talking about, you know, something like a force of gravity claim, where why is the apple going down, right? They may not find out why the apple is going down through air, as in they may not be able to say any more than, well, it's just a density differential issue, which brings them back to buoyancy. But they can say that there definitely isn't a force, because if there was, it wouldn't go up in water. That would be the truth if they were honest people actually doing science, natural science. That would be the truth. But they're not honest.
Credit where credit's due to
Unfortunately.
people smarter than myself, which is specifically Dr. John D. I think Refracted Curvature might have been part of the group. Adam Meeking, Quantum Eraser, were all discussing this 2-3 years ago, and it was a week-long discussion to come to the conclusion that it's a second-order effect of entropy.
Yeah, but that doesn't mean anything to me. I've heard
Well, it's
that
just a
million
description.
times. It means
It's not.
means
I'm
nothing.
not going to undermine your point. You're saying there's no scientific validity offered to it, but in terms of the description of it, the description, which is all it is just a second-order effect of entropic effects.
Yeah, but that's just a load of description. What is it?
You describing a
point is-
gravity effect, i.e., something falling to the ground in this instance. Why does stuff fall?
Yeah, we don't know. We just know that stuff goes down and stuff goes up. If the density of the thing, the substance or the object is more dense than the medium, it goes down. If the density of the substance or object is less dense than the medium, it goes up.
Yeah.
That's all we know.
Which
There's
is a
no
great.
point trying to add it. You know.
Well, it's a great description, and you're right. When I say it's a second-order effect of entropy, what I mean is it's a folly to try and validate this scientifically. You're never going to get to the cause of entropy. So therefore, a second-order effect of entropy, the same thing applies. When you go back to the first order, that's the description only of entropy. That's not telling you what caused it.
Yeah,
but
but
even-
will say, why do things not go sideways? Why do they go down?
Yeah, I don't care what they say. No offense. But a second order effect of entropy is only a description.
Yes, exactly.
All we can do is describe it. So saying that always never sat with me. The whole second order effect of entropy never sat with me, because it's like, well, what, the second order effect of a description? That doesn't make any sense to me.
Yeah.
No. It's one of the things, we don't know why it happens, but we do know that it's not because of some force pulling it to the center of a sphere out of radius 3.959 miles.
Exactly. That's my point as well.
Indeedy widdy.
Anyway, let's shut off for a few minutes, because I'm sure
Yeah,
you're
I
gonna
don't
get on someone's
care.
nerve. Yeah.
Yeah, you already got on my nerves.
What?
You deserve it.
Oh, you
No,
just.
I don't. When I add something, I don't expect to be shot down like that.
Oh, get over yourself. It's all good.
What did you add?
You don't even know, but you shot it right down. Fucking
you're
tired.
sideways. Why isn't it going sideways? I don't. That's not an adding. That's I don't care about that. I've heard about it. Why isn't it going sideways? I've heard that a billion times. It's a red herring away from the fact that the force that they need doesn't exist. That's what that is. If you want me to actually address it.
He's dropped. He's either lost his internet connection or got irritated with us saying, get over yourself.
He's after dropping, I would say, because he's irritated. Yeah, he's angry. I'm not going to address him telling me why isn't it going sideways? Why is he asking me that? That leaves some baller asked that. Why is he asking me
That's what he's doing. He's playing devil's advocate. Neil does it really well.
Yeah, but okay. But do
I can hear you in your voice. There's a time and a place. I appreciate why you'd be annoyed.
Should I stop in the middle of what I was saying to address this complete and utter horse manure that I've heard a million times?
No.
This red herring? Yeah.
No, fair enough. I totally understand your frustration. It is, during the description, a red herring. But what Neil's trying to emphasise is that you put this across to your average Joe Normie, and Neil's playing that devil's advocate position when you go through it in as concise a manner as you do, you get instantly undermined by some dick saying, what about things going sideways? Why don't they? And you're like, that's a complete red herring. You haven't acknowledged a single smegging word that I've just gone through.
Yeah, and when a bowler does it, fair enough, right? They're a bowler. But I'd rather Neil wasn't doing it and flat earthers weren't doing it. I'm aware of that. I don't need to be right. I don't need it to be reiterated to me again by someone on my own side.
Fair enough. Well, I appreciate what Neil does, but obviously in this particular circumstances you don't, which is fine. I think One Deck made a very good point. Thank you, One Deck.
That's not what I was saying.
Go ahead, Neil. Oh, has Neil got an audio issue? We can't hear you, Neil.
You didn't allow me to finish. You just jumped right down my throat.
Okay, finish, and then I jumped in your throat after that.
Down your throat.
When ball is coming, I'm trying to get on your point that we don't know why things go down, but we do know they go down. Now, if you come back and say, well, why don't things go sideways? We don't know, but we do know that they go down.
Do they? Looks up at clouds.
That's a.
Just want to counteract your straight off the bat. First of all, as much as it's going to annoy Brian, because it undermines his overarching point, you're going to need a plane of reference for that downward vector. But things don't all go down. Looks up at clouds. Sorry to do it, Brian. I had to do it. Sorry. Go ahead.
The things that do go down.
Yeah, but that's not their claim, Ian. Their claim is all things go down when they don't. And because they don't, they say, well, the things that don't go down, the things that go up, that's because of buoyancy, which is caused by a force of gravity. Do you know what I mean?
Yes, I understand.
I'm fully aware of their position. And what your point, there's nothing wrong with it, but in the middle of the flow I have going on, that doesn't help matters.
Oh, my God. Really, Brian?
Yeah, he told me off enough. I'm going to back Brian up. I'm sorry to do it to you, Neil. Yeah, he's told me off enough for me to know when I'm going to tick him off by doing it. So, yeah, I've got to back up Brian in this regard. Sorry. There's a time and a place.
I like the sound of my own voice sometimes, Dean.
That's not what I meant.
That's
not what I meant.
Sound your voice a lot. You didn't let me finish. You said not going to let me finish, so I guess that's it. Okay.
I thought you had done. I thought you had finished. Okay. I'll go quiet.
Had you finished? I thought you had too, Neil. Clearly you have. In either event, I thought we'd get through almost all of the housekeeping questions today, but we haven't. We've focused mainly on gravity, which is fine, absolutely fine. I like the fact that early on we got the flat earth prerequisite in before it could annoy Brian, and I've dropped it in a couple of times in between so people understand the plane of reference that is required. But ultimately, the bit that I was hoping we did focus on after we'd gone through the housekeeping questions, which we haven't done in the entirety of the focusing on prerequisites that are needed from a flat earth to assert the housekeeping questions as an opponent to flat earth debate, was NASA and the black hole and the fact that we have this absolutely enormous psyop. So in the past, I've given short shrift to Brian when he said it's the most important thing in the whole wide world because it's this massive black hole. And I've gone, yeah, and kind of not given it the credence that it deserves. And the more Brian says it, the more it resonates with me. It's like, no, it is the most important thing. Everything else is a sideline to this particular deception, the heliocentric deception. Because it's a kind of, am I making myself more grandiose than I necessarily need to be when I say it's the most important thing in the whole wide world because it's the thing I cover as my subject focus? Therefore, am I just overindulging my own ego when I say it's the most important thing? But the more Brian says it, the more I think, well, no, you're right. In terms of what actually affects people on a day-to-day basis, the systems of control that are in place, the money that's poured into it, the deceit level, all of it is absolutely off the charts, isn't it?
Yeah, if you look, let's take a timeline here. If you go back to 2019, we were all talking about the fact that the Earth's not a globe, that it's flat and stationary, right? And there was different things turning up that people could say, well, what about this thing that's happening in politics or that thing that's happening? What about this? What about the woke agenda, whatever? Then you have in 2020, you have COVID comes along. And then nobody cares what you're saying about the Earth. That's not important. What's important is what they're doing now with COVID, right? Then COVID went away, right? Then the Ukraine war turned up. The Ukraine-Russia war turned up, right? And you mentioned flat Earth, and everyone goes, never mind all that. There's serious stuff happening in the world, right? There's the war in Ukraine, and there's this, that, and the other thing happening. And in the meantime of all that, there was a big situation happen with Gaza, right? I think the West Bank back in 2021. Now you had the Gaza situation happen, and I'm not belittling any of these things, right? But you had the Gaza situation happening again, and all this stuff that's happening in and around the Palestine area, and has been happening since the 1940s. Right, and there's been waves of it on and off, and it's a continual thing going on. Right, I'm not going to go into it here now. Right, my position. But yeah, but the point being is that I'm not belittling the importance of all these things. But while all those things are happening in the background, you're being told you're on a rotating globe in a vacuum. Right, so something comes along, and like recently, in recent days, there's been a supposed ceasefire happening in Gaza. Right, between the IDF and the Hamas and whatever, right? And there's all this stuff going on, right? So now that'll, for a while, die down a bit, and it'll come back again, but it'll die down a bit. And there'll be something else come along. But there's always some other thing that the world is told is really important. And it is important, these things. There's no doubt about it, that all the people that are dying in these wars and the big deception that happened with the whole virus thing and all that for a few years there, that's all important. But all these things come along and then they go away or they die out and come back, whichever. The point is that all that time, you've all been told you're on a rotating globe in a vacuum. This is the head of the snake. There is no other. And this is why the only thing I'm interested in this is in this. You cannot deal with the snake by sticking pins in its side. The head of the snake is what you need to cut off. And then the snake is no more.
Perfect.
Unless you do
all
that,
these things
and do it correctly.
distractions.
I'm not saying they're intentional distractions, but you bring up this. Well, they don't know that the issues happen in the world, right? And the fact that maybe some of these issues are down to the fact that a lot of people just believe they're living on a rotating globe, and that whatever psychology is inbuilt in them because of that may have some knock-on effect, right? Because there's a nihilism effect, and maybe people are willing to do things in wars and get involved in wars because there is a certain amount of nihilism in the world. But the point I'm making is, in the end of the day, there's a main background manipulation going on at all times. And when you try and bring it up, there's always when you try and bring it up to the public, there's always some other thing that you'll be told is more important. Never mind all that stuff, this is the important thing. Never mind all that stuff, this is the important thing.
I think you're onto something.
But yes, that's what you can. Go on, yeah, sorry, I said it.
I'm just agreeing. He said, I think you're onto something. And I'm saying, I'm leaning into that. I'm going, yeah, because I gave you short shrift in the past when you've said this. Because I feel like I'm over-aggrandizing my position in this debate, which it isn't anymore. But I think you're right, and I'm agreeing with Neil. And I'm like, yeah, he is right. It's a huge deal.
It's like, how do you deceive somebody, right? You tell them, watch the hand over here while something else is going on over there.
Exactly.
That's what it sounds like to me.
Exactly. Don't look over there. That's not important. This is important.
Well, what did they do? They've indoctrinated people into thinking that flat earthers were either stupid or they weren't stupid, but they're such kooks that they misunderstand the world. You know, this kind of thing. So everyone kind of views it with either, they don't view it with, most of the time, unless some flat earth actual evidence is given to them or something that debunks the globe is given to them. Unless that happens, most of the time they view flat earthers as either being like the kind of the crazy kooks, right? Who get some stuff right, but not everything because they're a bit crazy, or they're stupid. And people kind of go, ha, those are flat earthers, right? But the people at the top of the table, they are not saying that. That's why we have been suppressed since the 1800s. And the stories about us have been like, if you could, like Samuel Rowbottom, you start hearing about how he used to kill and eat his children.
Yeah.
I mean, it's so, right? That's what you hear about. You hear nothing about Charles K. Johnson because they didn't write nothing about him because he's in recent history. So what they did is they just scrubbed him from legacy media. He did 1,000 interviews, and a load of them were on television programs. You can't find any of them. You find one thing, one small interview with a small newspaper that took place, and that's it. And it's a short little interview, and it's a written word interview, and that's it. 1,000 he was in adverts and everything. Sorry,
That's why.
you know what I mean?
That's why the literature is so important. That's why the book is so important.
They're saying that about me. He did 3,000 shows, and then they just deleted him.
They could just delete your shows, but they can't just delete a book.
Indeedy.
Yeah, but there you go, right? There's a knock-on effect here as well, right? And although there is a knock-on effect, and that knock-on effect is, I think, like the Christian Bible, the Quran, right? Things like that. Because they will then be shown to have more validity. Now, I'm not saying they're valid. I'm saying they can definitely be shown to have more validity, right? If it was admitted that the earth is flat and stationary. And obviously, it had to be admitted as enclosed. Before you know it, they start having more validity. Now, they don't want that. They want a situation where where you have a situation where you can choose either the Bible, Quran, Talmud, whichever, or you can choose science. Do you know what I mean? That's what they want. You can be science and learn about astrophysics. But there you go.
I think they choose media more than anything now, the news and things like that. And the reason I'm saying that is because, I'm not going to get into conspiracies or what, but I've pointed out, the geoengineering and chemtrails and things like that. I spoke about it to people years ago, right? And I was a conspiracy theorist, didn't know what I was talking about, even though you can look in the sky and see things are happening. But now it's been sort of, the news have said, yeah, this is what's happening. Everybody's like, yeah, this is what's happening. The people that called me crazy and didn't know what I was talking about, because the news have told them it's okay now, that's okay. So that's their Bible, the news.
It follows the same path. Ridiculed, violently opposed, and then accepted as though it was always true all along. But I'm going to round out the live show on that note. So with this, I am going to say, if you're watching on either Nathan Oakley 1980 or Nathan Oakley Premiering Streams, then stay tuned, as there will be an after show to follow.
You know what I mean? And they're going to have to deal with all that. Sorry?
I think I was just opening the lines up again.
Oh, yeah, I'm just saying people have to deal with, and that's just that. Then you have outside mitigating factors. The local councils, the local politician elements, the local stuff, crime stats, and all this. And then it goes into bigger things like political, controversy. And then you have wars, and you have, sicknesses, and you have all that. And they do their absolute best, right? Their absolute outright best to feed you as much BS as possible, and to put your life in a position where you don't even get the time to even process reality. You're too busy doing everything, and you're too busy when you're not doing everything. You're commenting about some ongoing thing, war or something that's going on social media. Go on,
and the whole time, the world is still spinning in the background to everybody when it's not spinning at all.
Exactly. That just managed to maintain its status quo without you having to do anything if everything else takes first fiddle.
Yeah, well, I mean, you're not taken serious, Nathan. I'm not taken serious. Neil is not taken serious. Wondex is not taken serious. We're not taken serious by the world until we point out the things that they don't like. And then suddenly we're taken very serious, and they want to kill us.
Yep. They want to silence. Once you start doing what we're doing, then you must be silenced. You must be held back. You must, what do they call it when you suppress? Right? Struggling to get views. Public enemy number one.
Yeah, I know for myself that I have to fight the temptation to have arguments with people, faceless, nameless trolls that are making comments on my videos. I have to go, no, just, you know what I mean? Move on. Don't waste your time, because that is just wasting my energy, right? On somebody you don't even know if it's even human.
You're right, because I was telling people in chat, starve a troll, feed somebody that you see is hungry, but if you hear a troll, just starve them. And if you don't respond, they go away.
Yeah, because there's a big difference between somebody who's genuinely wanting to engage with you, right, even if they don't like what you're saying, and somebody who's just trolling, right, or just wasting their time. And the thing is that why is Nathan's channel and my channel so suppressed? Why? What is it? Why do they have to suppress it so much? If we're
so bloody
this is a
handsome,
question.
it's because we're so attractive. That's what it is.
Well, we could
I
go
was
with
going to say
one.
that, but I didn't want to interrupt Brian's flow.
Oh, get lost. I mean, Neil, tell me off now. Sorry, Brian. You're right, Neil.
No, but like, I mean, we've asked this question, flat earthers in general, for a long, long time. But the problem is that I think at this stage, flat earthers roll their eyes when they hear that question. But it is the most pertinent question. If what we're saying is wrong, if what we're saying is incorrect, if the earth is not flat, stationary, and enclosed, right? If it's not that, then what are you worried about? Well, why not give us 50 million subscribers? What are you worried about? If we're so wrong, you shouldn't be so worried. You know what I mean? I'm not worried about people who have claims about things that are wrong. You know, I'm not worried if someone is claiming that every second person is actually a badger person or something, and they're hiding behind human skin that they developed underground. I'm not worried about that because that is nonsense. It's not going. No, that is not going to stick. It's easily proven to be wrong. So if we are not a problem, then why suppress us?
Just annoys me lately with your so-called flat, really big ball flat earthers and other people, because they are making us look stupid, and they're the ones being heard and listened to and put on these shows as puppets. I cringe now when I listen to them. I'm thinking, and then people, my friends and family of mine who I don't really speak about the subject to, but if they were to stumble across these people talking like that, they'd just think that Wandex's definitely an idiot if this is what he's believing about this and that, and the sun movement and the ice walls and everything, all the other piece of nonsense they talk about. But that's what people get, isn't it? The idiots, and that's why you're being suppressed. Well, the truth.
Well, let's just take what David Weiss was saying in that recent thing that Nathan that you covered. This is something I wasn't on the show, but I was listening. I was saying this to the lads yesterday when you got off for the call. But this is something that David Weiss and people like David Weiss do. He was referencing a situation where supposedly, I don't know if it's true, but supposedly all solar eclipses that take place south of the equator, let's just say, right, or in the southern summer, I think it is, right? Every time a solar eclipse takes place in the southern summer, right, where the sun is south of the equator, that they always happen faster than eclipses that take place in the northern summer, right, when the sun is north of the equator. So the more south the sun is, the faster the eclipse takes place. And the more north is, the slower the eclipse takes place. Now, David Weiss is covering this. Now, as I said, I don't know if that's true, but if that is true, then that is a very, very, very disturbing thing for someone who's a globe-believing heliocentrist. Very much so. Because unless they can explain that with Kepler's analemma and the analemma of the moon, they're in, which I don't think they can, because that involves the rotation of their globe. And that would involve, because their sun doesn't move, remember. Now, what David Weiss and people like him will do, they'll take that and he'll talk about that, but then he'll talk about ether or dielectric acceleration or some other crazy nonsense. And it takes the validity that maybe in that thing to do with eclipses away. So that's his job. He takes away the validity of, from things that may actually have a lot of validity. You know what I mean? He doesn't give them, I don't think he doesn't show these things to be true. He just throws them out there as if they are. Now, if it's true, that claim is true, if that is true, that is very, very troublesome for heliocentrism.
Explain.
Well, when you have an eclipse on the globe, this is a globe now, right? If they're trying to explain it on a globe, right, you have a sun that's stationary, you have a moon that is orbiting the globe, and you have a globe that's rotating around on its axis. Right? So the sun isn't moving in that paradigm. You're rotating west to east, giving you the impression that the sun is moving east to west at 15 degrees per hour. Right? Even though the globe is rotating at sidereal rate, over the course, it would take months to show a difference between the sidereal and solar rate. So that means nothing over the course of a day or a couple of weeks. The point is that an eclipse happens over the course of an afternoon or an hour or two or whatever of a day. The point is that the globe Earth can't rotate at a different rate, right, in the northern summer and the southern summer. If within the Kepler's analemma, it moves past their sun at a faster rate, right, in their southern summer, and a slower rate in their northern summer, due to a claimed force of gravity that we talked about on the show right earlier. But the point is that that is the only claim they can make when it comes to speed. And Kepler had to make that claim because the sun does appear to move, right, in a stranger rate, at a stranger rate. I don't know if I can give it a fast or slow rate, in the southern summer, right? Like, this is what they actually say: the southern summer is shorter than the northern summer. There's a lot of nonsense going in there. But the point being is that if the moon is going in front of the sun, right now, I'm not saying the moon does go in front of the sun in the solar eclipse, but the claim is the new moon in the heliocentrism was in front of the sun and blocks the sun's light and then goes off out the other side. Now, the sun is not moving in their paradigm. The only thing movement that's happening is the rotation of the globe out. So that would mean that rotation has to stay constant, right, at 15 degrees per hour, regardless of the position of the sun in relation to it. Their globe can't change its sidereal rotation. They are stuck with that because they had to stick with sidereal rotation because that's the rotation of the stars. Now, if the only thing they could come up with is that every time there's an eclipse that's happening south in the southern summer, south of the equator, the moon would have to be moving faster. But also, their globe Earth has to be involved and the rotation of that globe. Now, as I said, I don't know if it's true, right? I might have a look into it, but if it is true, they're finished. I mean, it's like there is just no way for them to deal with that. I'd have to look into it and have a look at the analemma of the moon and the solar analemma involving the globe, Kepler's. But it's like, I don't see, initially on its face, I really don't see how that could happen. You know, and the Earth be a globe, rotating sphere in a heliocentric paradigm. It just can't. But David Weiss will talk about it and throw it out there. And then he'll throw out some other nonsense. And then he'll try and sell you his app. And then everyone go, it's kind of entertaining looking at that stuff. Anyway, back to serious matters. The war happening in Ukraine or the political scandal. So he's not a serious matter. And flat Earth is not a serious matter. You know what I mean? None of that is a serious matter. That's all something for conjecture and conspiracy and whatever. Entertain you when you have nothing else to do at home and food for thought. But it's not a serious matter on people's heads. What's a serious matter is that political scandal that's going on. That's the serious matter. When the real serious matter is the thing that David Weiss is actually referring to. It's just he's not doing it in such a way where people take it serious.
Yeah, back in the day, it was anything but. And the counter argument from the shills like Tim Osman were against Dave Weiss saying that 9/11 truth was the most important thing. And you'd have Tim Osman backing him up, in effect, going, yeah, you're muddying the waters of 9/11 truthers when you talk about flat Earth. That's not important. 9/11 truth is.
But there you
go. See?
Yeah. 9/11 was a big event, and there's no doubt about it. There's no end of lies around it. And anyone who's in a sane frame of mind when it happened and were there and were anyway adults could see this is nonsense. But it's in comparison to the globe and heliocentric paradigm that's been foisted upon the whole world for hundreds of years. It's no offense to anyone that were affected by it, but it's nothing. It's like a grain of sand on a beach that's 1,000 miles long and 100 miles wide. Do you know what I mean? There's so many things have happened in history since we've been told it's a globe. So many things, whether it be natural disasters, wars, political scandals, this, that, the other thing. So many things have happened, and people go, "This is so serious." And yeah, it's serious, but it's not as serious as the paradigm that your children are now being indoctrinated into. That will help them to don't know what the hell's going on by the time they're 25.
I mean, I know we've spoke about this before. We spoke about this before, like going back a bit. Like we all know the Earth's flat. Us here now, and the audience know the Earth is measured flat. So, at what point do you just get? Nathan says it a few times. You just switch off and get on with your life. I mean, what do you think your job is? Not just pointing you out, Brian, but once you realise this, have we got a job now to convince people, or do we just get on with our everyday life?
Yeah, it's a gradual job. It's a gradual job, I would say, one day, and that's why you're attracted to the subject. I had someone say, I'm not going to say who, but someone saying to me who was a flat earther in recent days, talking about how they might run for local council, and I should be more concerned about what's happening in my own country and on the streets of my own country and blah, blah, blah. And I didn't give any response back to it. But I'm not concerned. I'm concerned about what's happening to the world on a continual basis. So all we can do is slowly keep putting out the information in any medium we can. Bit by bit by bit by bit. Flat earthers will not go away. And they know this.
So flat earth is not important anymore. What's important is what's going on in everybody's county. Wow.
That's not what he's saying.
No, what I'm saying is
I know it's not what Brian's saying.
Yeah, it's that you can't. It's that people start. What happens is people start. Look at all the flat earthers who went towards COVID when it came out. And I remember us saying in 2019, "Don't chase this thing. Stick to flat earth. Cut the head off the snake." I remember distinctly on the live shows. Stay away from this thing that's on the way. Right. It started off with the likes of Rampy promoting it, coming. Big fear tactics and other people. And then it came along, and loads of good flat earthers stopped covering flat earth, and they went off and they covered COVID. And what did YouTube do? They took our channels away and kicked them off. Right? And then those flat earthers disappeared, and there were some really good flat earthers. Right?
Yeah, the
who had big channels.
Guy.
Yeah, there was exactly the Red Pill Philosophy, a brilliant, great flat earther. Right? And he had 60,000 people subscribed to him. Right, and because he chased that, and many others like him, many others chased it, and they all got kicked off YouTube. Right, so now they're not here. They went off, and now they're sidetracked to doing something else instead of being here, you know what I mean? It's a divide and conquer situation. They gave the temptation of here's COVID. And I have to say, his videos on it were the best videos.
Yeah, I used to enjoy watching his videos.
Yeah, he was showing the dark side of it. But the point is that the YouTube, you're not allowed at the time. Now you can make $1 million of them, but at the time, you're not allowed to make a video about that. And him and others, in my opinion, should have fought the temptation and stayed away from it. Because we did. And that's why we're still here. But we're still here, but so many others are not. Because they've gone off into other things. Yeah, but look at the other things people have gone into. They've gone into what's that, Tataria and all this other stuff. And it's like, and even people that go off into biblical only things, it's like you're not finishing the job. Do you know what I mean? You're getting 3/4 way through the job, and then you're going off washing windows or whatever. You know what I mean? It's like you're supposed to be laying down the floor. You have piling done on the floor, 3/4 way the floor is done. And then you decided you're going to go off and start painting the outside. You haven't finished the job. Do you know what I mean? So there's less people here trying to finish the job.
Well, sometimes you run out of material.
There's a guy who popped up on Instagram lately. Not seen him before. He's local. He lives in Rochdale, not far from where I am, and he's promoting flat Earth. Now he's obviously just got into the subject because on some of his posts he's talking a bit of feast and nonsense. He's talking about a dome, the shape of a dome over us, and he's gone into the ice ones. I just give some nice comments to him saying, just be careful with what you're saying. I said you're better off just explaining that, the air that we breathe, pressure, requires containment. Don't go into what shape. So giving some friendly advice, and not him, but some of his new audience sort of jumps on me trying to chew my head off. Now, just to go a little bit further, he also talks about other things. He's going around looking at buildings and Tartaria and other stuff like that, the feast of nonsense, if you want to call it that. But his follow base now, I think he's got over 1 million followers in a short space of time. He's just, I can't remember his name off the top of my head, but now he's just gone into TikTok. He will be, but this is what people obviously are wanting to listen to, this nonsense.
Well, it's what gets promoted. It's not necessarily what they want to listen to, it's what they get shown. So people are lazy. If they're presented with it algorithmically, they'll watch it.
Yeah, I mean,
right,
the problem there, one day, is that conspiracy theorists don't see the real conspiracy, which is people who are in flat Earth, who are conspiracy theorists, they don't see the real conspiracy, which is to gradually bring you into the topic, right? Because they can't stop you finding it, but then sideline you off with red herrings out of it. Look at this conspiracy over here. Look at all these Masonic numbers over there. Look at this biblical thing over here. Is that really? Is that chemicals coming out of that airplane? That's becoming more of a bigger mainstream deal. I understand that, but that was also used as a sideline, right? The main thing is that it's flat, stationary, and enclosed, and we're told the complete opposite of that, and they're teaching your children the complete opposite of that. And the more the flat earthers go up into these sidebar things, and they might gain them subscribers and notoriety and all the rest of it, but you're not finishing the job. You turned up and then you left before the job was done. Just because you know that it's flat, stationary, enclosed, or you presume it is, or whatever you claim you might make, that doesn't mean that you can just go, anyway, that's the end of that. You're supposed to be finishing the job. Like, if this was a job site, these people would never work again, because you turn up and you do half the job and go off. You're supposed to be here, finishing the job, and you're not. You're talking about any other nonsense you can find to talk about.
We always knew where the Tartaria was anyway. Know where it is?
Behind the fridge.
It's by the cake area.
It's a tart area. It's the cake area, yeah. All that stuff, I'm sure, is interesting, but it's one of those things. You see, the problem is, flat earthers conspiracy theorists don't realise that a lot of conspiracies, the way they're structured and the way they are, is you can get 85% towards the truth, or 90% or 95% to the truth. But it's that last 5% you need to prove it, outright prove it. Whether it be the recent things that happened with, let's say, Charlie Kirk, JFK, 9/11, whichever. It's that small percentage that you don't have and is the most difficult to get. Whereas when it comes to flat Earth, you can prove it. And that's the difference. And that is the difference. You can get to that 100%. You don't have to get to, reasonable doubt would say it's definitely, with all these things put together, there's no way that the official story can be correct. You don't have to do that. You can just go, this is this measurement. This is the behavior of gases. You know what I mean? This is the implications of a rotating Earth. This is the, you know what I mean? It's like, these are the things that you can show as absolute proof for your claims. You don't need to worry about if you haven't. Sorry, go on.
I was just going to say, that's the game, isn't it? The game was get you, as you put it, I was going to say halfway there, but 80% there, let's just say, and then give you the feast of nonsense so that you can be ridiculed. Because then you're not ever getting to the it's just measured flat for everyone. That's why we've got to have this little game where we talk about Sandy Hook or 9/11 or whatever it is that you want to divulge or get into after the fact, because there's people out there giving it to you.
Yeah, well, you have, like, the problem is they become nothing burgers. Interesting and all they are, right? Some of these things, they are interesting. But they become nothing burgers if you can't absolutely get to the truth and facts, right? And then you have, like, with Flat Earth, you can show that gas pressure requires a container, and that the system we have, right, is a dynamic system that is generated by the fact that we have a moving heat source called the sun, right? You can show all these things, that all that requires containment. Gas pressure, temperature, vacuum, they require containment. So yeah, we have a low-grade vacuum in the sky because we are contained, right? To describe a vacuum, you require gas pressure to describe it, if you understand what I mean by that. But it's kind of ironic. But you don't need to claim it's a dome, because then someone will say, prove your dome. No, that doesn't mean it isn't a dome, because I could make a geometric or an engineering argument for a dome. But I don't have to do that. Now, we've said this a million times. But the point is that even with something like Flat Earth, where you can get to the absolute proof, you can still be put in the bad position because you're claiming it's a dome or there's an ice wall as opposed to a barrier. You know what I mean? You don't have to claim that it's an ice wall. Even if it is, you can't directly prove it, so don't claim it. But you can, if you stay away from that kind of thing and you stick to what you can show and prove, then you can prove it. But when it comes to other things, like as you said, Nathan, Sandy Hook, 9/11, all these other things, you'll only get to almost. It's like, you know, that 98% loaded, 98% uploaded or downloaded, and then stop. That means it didn't do it. Do you know what I mean? You know, that percentage bar used to be a bigger deal before. You used to get it many years ago on computers. It's like 95% uploaded or 95% downloaded, and then it stops. That's what you get with other things. The other things that you want to focus on, whether it be Tartaria or whether it be 9/11 or whatever, you get to this point and then you don't get that last bit that's crucial. Without that last bit, it's like the end of a movie. You know, like, you don't get to see it. Do you know what I mean? It's Jaws just before the shark jumps onto the boat, right? As the shark jumps onto the boat and busts the back of the boat, you don't get to see what happens because it stops there. So it's like, I think what happened is that Roy Scheider's character did this, that, and the other thing, and Robert Shaw's character and Richard Dreyfuss and blah, blah. Yeah, but you don't know. So it's a load of I think. And, you know, if we go by the numbers, it's more than likely that, yeah, that doesn't mean anything. You have people out there like Candace Owens who are covering conspiracy all the time, and she's a classic example of this, because she is the queen of nothing burgers. If you watch her show, which I do, right? I'm not going to say I don't, because if you watch her show, I enjoy her show, but I don't take it serious, because she will bring someone to that 95%, and then she won't have the evidence, or she won't be presenting it if she ever does have it, right? Right, to get people to that 100% mark where something is absolutely proven. It's a load of hype, a load of coming tomorrow, tune in next week, and it's a nothing burger. Do you know what I mean? Nothing ever really gets solved. And that's what they want. You know, so they want you to be involved in things that don't get solved. Yeah, go on, Neil, sorry.
So that's a purpose. Huh? To start something and not finish it.
If that's what they want you to be in a position where you're chasing down leads that end up in nowhere. You know what I mean? It seemed like they were going somewhere and you end up hitting a brick wall. Because that bit of information you need, that's the bit of information that they will not allow you to have. You know? And that's what's different about this topic. But that also is scary for those who try to suppress this topic, because this topic is the biggest thing they must hide, and they hide it by making it into a bit of an L joke, right? When they're calling it an L joke, they have beads of cold sweat running down their forehead But they know this is the real scandal. They know that. But if they can have people chasing down leads about, you know what I mean, whether somebody is a transgender person or not, or whether this person killed that person or whatever, and kind of almost finding the truth, then, and people, tuning into this, that's great. And that suits them fine. Or talking about some big serious political thing or a war or disease or whatever, and yeah, they're serious, as I said before, but this is the real serious.
And what are they so scared of then? What are they so scared of? If the world found out tomorrow, everybody found out the world is flat, they'd be in some problems, wouldn't they? First of all.
Well, as Nathan has led us on to this, NASA. I mean, NASA would have to explain where all that money has gone to. Do you know what I mean? Now, I'm sure they could try their best to explain it, but even just today's money, or yet, let's say this day last week, where did that money go to? You know what I mean? How much, like, the fact is that NASA would then have to, show, they can't say, oh, well, this money went into this thing that went off into, it's like, no. They can build a few rockets and they can build some satellites that won't be going up into heliocentric aerospace, but that's not going to account for $50 million a day for decades.
Right.
I mean, they're going to have to address that. And that's why...
No, I didn't finish. Go ahead, because I'm going to piggyback off you.
Yeah, well, I was just going to say that alone, just that alone, that financial issue that would take place in America and concerning NASA, just that alone would be monstrous, right? Monstrous as a scandal.
I'm thinking the other way. I'm thinking like if they found out tomorrow, then all of a sudden they no longer are, that people are no longer on a globe. They're going to want to know. Okay, so then what is it, and how far does it stretch? I mean, is this what it's all about? You're withholding land for us, or you're saying the world is overpopulated, but there's more land? I think there's so many avenues people want to go down. They'll want to go to the schooling system and want answers of why their children were being taught something that's not factual.
Well, what they might be told, I see the problem is with NASA, you don't know if they tell you the truth or not because they're criminal lawyers. What they might be told is, we don't know. Do you know what I mean? Or they could be told another story, some heap of nonsense. Do you know what I mean? It's hard to say what they'll be told. I just saw a video there recently, literally a week ago, and there was a guy covering Operation Fishbowl, which is part of Operation Dominic. Now, I think everyone here knows what Operation Fishbowl is, but I'll state it anyway. It's when they were shooting what claimed to be atomic weapons up into the sky. This is what they claimed to do, and they were exploding in the sky. Right now, I'm not an atomic weapons specialist, right? But their claim was that they were exploding off out in Earth's outer atmosphere. Now, basically, if you look into what they were actually claiming, is that they were encountering a vacuum. they were encountering a vacuum, and the resistance of the vacuum caused them to explode. Now, I read the comments on this guy's video. I don't know how many comments he had, but he had a lot. There's a lot of views. And everyone was talking about these things, but nobody was mentioning that. Do you know what I mean? Everyone just accepted, based on what the comments were, the tone of the comments, they just accepted that this rocket with some atomic bomb in it encountered the resistance of a vacuum, and you know what I mean, and exploded. Like,
oh, it didn't hit nothing. It just the vacuum exploded it. Okay.
Well, it did. It hit a vacuum. That's what was being claimed. Now, when you listen to the words the guy was using, and he was just referencing the official claim, that what was being claimed is that these rockets were hitting probably 10 to the -7 torr. of a vacuum, right? And exploding because of interacting with the what? The nothing. I mean, so everyone was in total alignment. The people were talking about different parts about it and conspiring about this, that, and the other thing, about why they were doing this and this, that, and the other thing, and how you can't trust NASA and you can't trust these people and that. Yeah, but nobody was referencing that rockets. That's not what happened. You can't encounter resistance in a vacuum.
Yeah, that's what I mean. They hit a container. They hit containment, not a vacuum.
Right. I don't know what they hit or what happened, whether they were manually or whether they were remotely. I don't know what was going on, but I know this much: there's no resistance in a vacuum. A vacuum doesn't resist. There's nothing there to cause a resistance. There's no solids, no gases. Do you know what I mean? If you're talking like whatever tiny amount, well, I want to say no, because there's no thing as a perfect vacuum, but the amount of gases would be tiny in comparison to why didn't it explode when it was sitting on the ground, when it was encountering all the gases on the ground? Why did it have to go up to where there was hardly no gases to meet resistance? I couldn't believe what I was reading. And these weren't all bots. These were like actual people with channels that you could see, on YouTube for 13 years, bloody blah person. It's just like, and I just wrote a comment in basically, I just think people will just believe any old rubbish. And I just left it at that. No one responded.
Let's just say, fine, let's just say they were. But what point would that be? That's why I find it hard to believe that. Like, what point would they have to crack the glass ceiling? What do they think would happen?
That's what they want to ask. God.
In the world?
That's exactly what they want you to ask. Right, feast of nonsense gets better, O'Neill. No. Listen to what Brian's saying to you.
I hear what he's saying to me, but I'm saying, what would be the purpose of it? I think the whole thing is bullshit.
Listen, his last question, I'm just going to reiterate. If you get somebody who seems intelligent and they are told that the rocket, whether or not there's nukes, again, I have to agree with Brian. I don't know whether or not this is a true story or not. It's just their story and their narrative, and that's what we're going. It doesn't mean we agree. It doesn't mean we disagree. It just means we're reiterating the story. But the story is, it hits an empty space, and that's what it's hitting. It's hitting an empty space. It's like saying, how did you break your fist? Well, I punched the air. Right, I see. Oh, that makes perfect sense to me. Of course. So then you go along and say, yes, of course, my neighbour broke his fist because he was punching the air. And if you punch the air hard enough, these scientists say that it'll break your knuckles.
Oh, wow. I understand that. I totally understand what he's saying. I get it. But I think the whole story is a bunch of nonsense.
Well, look, I mean, it doesn't matter whether it was atomic weapons or just a bomb of any kind of a
or if it happened at all, or if it even happened at all.
Yeah, it happened at all. That's the point. Yeah. As I said, I don't know if it happened. I couldn't know if I believe it. But even if they sent up, like, it doesn't matter whether atomic bombs even existed. Like, people are believing that this did happen, and these rockets encountered the resistance of a vacuum. It's like,
well, that was the whole point of it then.
No, it's not. He's not asking about whether or not there's a point to their rhetoric. His point is that seemingly intelligent people will accept the rocket hit an empty space because that's the official story. That's his point.
I know. I understand that. Holy shit, I know.
I think that the world is more dumbed down than even we realize.
Yes.
Because I am being shocked regular by it, I'll be honest.
I mean, I stumbled upon a Bro Sanchez clip the other day. I didn't watch it. I was just having a browse through.
Oh, boy.
He's putting out like the Van Halen belts is actually the barrier for the gas pressure and the firmament, and that's what they've been trying to do. That's why they say they can't get through them, the Van Halen belts, because it's actually the firmament.
Firmament. Oh, okay, great.
Well, the thing is that right, if you look at that story and you actually research what's going on in the sky, right, which I have, the reason they even came up with the Van Allen belts is not just to cover themselves, but they can actually show that high up in the sky there is a buildup of radiation. What's termed as radiation. They can show that that's there, right? Which, if I'm not going to go into all the details of it, right? But it makes sense that and this is why this buildup of radiation. This is also what they had to use to come up with the lie of what's that?
Ozone layer?
Ozone layer. What a joke. The ozone layer, right, was supposed to protect us from all this space radiation, a buildup of space radiation, right? They're supposed to, it was supposed to protect us, but because of aerosol cans, we ended up with a hole in the ozone layer over Antarctica, of all places, right? Back in the 70s or something, right? But the thing is, they're talking about the ozone layer. The highest concentration of ozone, a claimed concentration of ozone, and I think it could be pretty true from what I've researched and how it's there, is at about 22 miles up in the sky. And the calculated amount of ozone, right, according to NASA, is 15 parts per million. That means for every 1 million, right, whether it be molecules or atoms of gas, at 22 miles up, 15 of them are ozone. And the air pressure at 22 miles up is about 10 to the minus 3 torr. So that'll be within a meter cubed, you'll be talking hardly no air at all, hardly no gases whatsoever within that meter cubed, right? In comparison to what we have at surface level, right? There'll be so little within that meter cubed, right? And these will be, from a calculation point of view, so tiny, right, that to even come up with 1 million of them in that area, right, you'd have your work cut out, right? And then only 15 of them are ozone. So how the hell is this ozone thing a layer that stops radiation when the ozone that's up there is continually being broken apart by things like bromine? Right? There's bromine and 2 other gases or elements that break it apart naturally. Right, so, and it's one of the things. Like ozone is 3 oxygen, right? And it's not going to stay. That's just not the natural. It is always only a temporary situation, supposedly, from a chemistry point of view. Adam's not here, but if he was, he could go into maybe a bit more. But the point being is that this is their claim. So 15 parts per million is ozone. So, but there's hardly any of it there at this claimed biggest percentage of ozone. There's hardly any air at all or anything. Do you know what I mean? So it's 10 to the minus 2 or 10 to the minus 3 torr. If you know what I mean? So this ozone layer is another thing that comes from the claim of protecting us from radiation, because there is a buildup of radiation up there. We have a buildup of radiation in the sky. How do you have a buildup of radiation without a barrier?
Says you, bro Sanchez.
Yeah, but it's. I'm not being. No, I'm actually like. My point is that when they talk about the Van Allen belts, they can start trying to back that up by pointing out this buildup of radiation in the sky that is actually there. But they won't be talking about the fact that you are going to need a container for that buildup. How do you have a buildup of radiation in a vacuum?
You don't.
Yeah.
Gravity, obviously.
You'll need a flat plate.
There's nothing for, yeah. Radiation is light. It's part of the light spectrum.
He's saying you go up like what is seemingly where the sun is. I mean, I'm not suggesting that the sun isn't coming out of the grass, but you know, if you take it as read that the sun is above us, you're saying you get closer to it and there's more light and heat, aka radiation. Ridiculous, Brian. How dare you?
Yeah, this is the thing. It might have something to do with our moving radiation source called the sun. You know what I mean? Where the big light in the sky. No, that is 93 million miles away, and there's build-up of radiation on the edge of our atmosphere, right, in a vacuum, right, and that's what's going on. It's not that there is something that we call the sun that obviously emits light and is obviously somewhere up there or whatever the hell it is, and there's a build-up because it's a vacuum. Well, you need a container for a vacuum, number one, and number two, radiation doesn't build up. Without it, how are you going to have a build-up of radiation without a container? You can't. In their paradigm, it's not possible to have a build-up of radiation.
Well, you can apparently have a plasma container.
Oh, you're right. It goes down because I stopped using hairspray in the 70s. Everybody did because we didn't want to destroy the ozone layer. We didn't want to die.
Yeah, there's a build-up of light in a vacuum. That's what they're telling you. There's pockets of light building up in a vacuum. That's what they're trying to tell you when they say there's a build-up of radiation, as radiation is part of the light spectrum. And I think this is part of the reason why they started describing the radiation as electromagnetic, because they're trying to give it some kind of some extra tangibility or something. When it's not, it's light, so it's not electric or magnetic. Do you know what I mean? That's a very true point that QE has been saying for years. It's light. It's not electric or magnetic. So it's not electromagnetic anything. They describe it that way, but it isn't. You know, often they describe things like they're using electricity and magnetism to describe something because they actually just don't know what it is. They don't know. They can't actually tell you exactly what thermal radiation is, thermal energy. They can only describe these things. They can't tell you what it is. It's beyond their ability to know, I think.
Sounds like the bending a light in a fourth dimension.
I'm getting bombarded with messages from guess who? Captain Edgeware or Edgewise. It drives him crazy when I don't answer him.
Get him in here. Ask him to explain how Earth curve was
that's
He needs to explain how a rocket explodes when it encounters the resistance of a vacuum.
Yeah, so I said, listen. You know the way. You know how to get on. Stop claiming that Nathan's going to shut you down. You won't get a word in. Stop the bullcrap. Take your Bluetooth off. Speak clearly into your phone, and you'll be heard. Other than that, I got no time for you. You know, that's always the coward way out. Well, Nathan shouts at me. Nathan yells at me, and I can't get a word in. No, it's not that Nathan shouts at you. He stops you at your bullcrap claim when you can't support it.
No, I stop him when he uses a flat Earth prerequisite, and I get him to concede that it's a prerequisite, like getting an elevation angle from a curved surface, and he denied perpendicularity last time for about 6 or 7 times until he finally went, under his muttery voice, yes. At which point I said, well, yes then, so you do concede that you're not going to get perpendicular from a ball. And then he ran away like an abject coward, having conceded his loss. Then he ran away, because I then reiterated his loss. A flat Earth prerequisite measurement in this instance. He didn't like it, that's why he ran away like an abject coward. But he wants to suggest that that's me shutting him down. No, you used a flat Earth prerequisite, Captain Edgeware.
Oh, so that's why. So we stopped him right at the part we tried to skip over. You know how they were getting away with it for years.
Yeah, the minute I stopped them from using our stuff, that would be flat Earth prerequisite perpendicularity, they get annoyed that I won't just let them use flat Earth prerequisites to suggest they're on a book. They don't like that. So they run away like cowards and say that Nathan shuts me down and shouts at me. Yeah, I do when you lie 6 times about being able to get perpendicularity from a ball. You can't. There's no flat surface to get it from. And when he finally conceded, and I shut him down because he's conceded that fact that he lied about 6 times, yeah, he's going to get shouted at for being a liar. Those are just the way it is if you lie. Don't like it, don't lie. Just concede that you're using a flat earth, and then I'll be demanding you get on your knees in acknowledgement of the flat earth you need for your argument to make sense. But then we've got a flat earth that we need, and there's no point in having the argument. But of course, that's when he ran away, didn't you, Captain?
Well, no offence to Captain Edgeware or any of the other bowlers. It's not personal, but for me, I don't see the point in inviting discourse with them. Because if you're walking down the road, you're going from A to B, that means you're progressing somewhere. Do you hope, while you're walking down the road, I hope some guy stands right in the way of me walking down this footpath and stops me? And, because that's what you're doing when you're inviting.
But how do you explain how this pavement got paved, Brian? Explain asphalt.
Yeah.
I'm just saying how I'm getting bombarded with messages. So what we're talking about must really hurt them. But I'm just saying, don't give me messages. Have some balls and come on and get shut down because it is a show.
I understand it's a show, and I'm only speaking from my own opinion. If he has a problem, then that's his problem. I don't want to have to deal with his problem. Now, obviously, someone else probably will, and I probably would anyway. But the point is that, as I said, you don't hope for someone to stop you walking down the street. You don't hope for that. It's like, I can't wait for that to happen. No, I want that not to happen. I want to be free to walk. So what I mean, when you're dealing with a border, they're that person standing in your way, and they want to know how these showers happened. Where did that concrete come from? It's like, and they have some story. They've got an explanation of where the concrete comes from. And you're trying to tell them, but it's actually sand and gravel. And no. That
Walking
comes
down,
from
hold on.
light in the sky.
But walking down the street is not the biggest controversy in the world.
You can't have sand on a flat earth.
That is classic border.
How do you explain concrete?
Yeah, that's what you get. Yeah, and
The molten iron core.
Yeah. Sorry, Neil.
He said, "How do I explain
Molten iron
concrete?" I
core.
said, "The molten iron core. Yeah, that's responsible for concrete."
But that's it. You end up having. But let's use that analogy. You're trying to explain, okay, it's sand and gravel, and the way they do it, and they mix it all up, and add some water. It's like, no. That's where that sand and gravel comes from. There's a quarry out the road. No, there isn't any quarry. Prove your quarry, flat earther. You know what I mean? Like, it's coming from that light in the sky. Centurion 4 or whatever. It's like, no, it's not coming from the light in the sky. As like, that is your conversation when you're walking to the shop to get milk and bread. I mean, no, I'm okay for that, thanks. I'm grand for that. I don't want you standing in my way and trying to tell me about how this concrete is not coming from some quarry that I have made up in my crazy flat earth mind that's out the road 10 miles.
Wow, I kind of agree with you now. I see what you're saying. We have already proven Earth is flat. We have no time for you. You're absolutely right.
What progress do you get with someone like Captain Edgeware?
We're liars. They're no progress. They're here to lie to themselves more than us, but it frustrates me when they lie to my face when they've used a flat earth prerequisite like perpendicular. And then they spend 6 times lying about it being capable of being acquired from a ball, which it isn't. Like, that was the last interaction with him, the lies and deceit of ballers, because they're delusional and they want to retain a faith in a ball that isn't real.
Yeah, there has to be
Rooney.
But there has to be a purpose to it. And this is why I don't bother debating. As I said, I will for €5,000. But other than that, I'll debate for free if it's on a big channel and it's bloody Brian Cox or Neil deGrasse Tyson. Like, if they want to lie in front of a massive audience, like idiots, they can. Or you got to deal with that. That's worth dealing with. But I don't want to have to deal with some baller who just cannot accept reality, who wants to ask you, right, to prove your quarry. You know what I mean? It's like, you can bring him to the quarry, show him all the stuff and whatever else, and he'll say it's refraction that doesn't exist in his power. You know what I mean? We are at nothing. Or no, that is there, but it all came from Centurion 4 up in that light in the sky. You may as well be telling you that. You know what I mean?
I can prove my quarry. I can prove two of them. Jerry Quarry and my quarry. 2 boxes from the 1970s. Very good boxes I had too. Just, at the wrong time when the heavyweight division was filled with great boxers like Muhammad Ali and Ken Norton. But there were 2 guys out there called Jerry Quarry and Mike Quarry. So there, I proved my quarry.
Mike Quarry.
Mike Quarry, yeah.
Is he Mr. Hunt's cousin?
Brian knows what I'm talking about. They come from that area over there. I think they were originally from... Where were they from, Brian, the Quarry brothers?
They're from close to, like maybe a 7-minute walk away from where my mother grew up.
Yeah, see? And what happened was when he fought Ali the first time, he should have canceled because he got into a fight with his brother in the bar the night before, and he broke his back. So he was actually fighting that fight with a broken back when he should have just pulled out. I don't think he would have beat Ali anyway, but it would have been a better fight. But anyway, that's a little boxing history.
Yeah, but what about the sand and cement is coming from Centurion 4 up in the sky here? How do you explain that? No. Yes, the quarry is there. The quarry that I denied the existence of, that I made you proof, lad. Yes, it is there, but only because it all comes from the sky. That's where all the soil is. The sand and gravel is in the sky.
Funny you say that, because there's been an upsurge in meteors. Like, that's all I've been hearing about is meteor strikes.
Have you seen them?
No, that's my point. I'm like, I haven't seen any.
I haven't either. These meteors, I've seen shooting stars. That is it. I haven't been hit by any rocks from the sky. Now, they could be dropped from an airplane that I can't see, right, or something. But I haven't encountered them. There's no houses around me that have big holes in the roofs because rocks came flying down from some heliocentric sky vacuum.
Oh, well, then how do you explain the Grand Canyon, Brian?
There's a giant shark that's poking out of a roof in Oxford.
What?
Look it up. Giant shark roof in Oxford. Just Google it. My brother lives in Oxford, and I went round one day and just walking around, and I'm like, what the hell is that? We went over, and it's just some guy that's decided to make his roof look like it's crumbled to pieces. I mean, I assume he's made it waterproof. And then he's got this giant life-size, if not overly life-size, like bigger than Jaws, shark protruding out of his roof. I'm not even joking. There's no other way to describe it. It's a roof shark.
That's cool.
Yeah, look it up if you just Google Oxford roof shark.
Yeah, and that can't happen without Centurion 4. All the sand and gravel we get from that. So, yeah.
But yeah, there's this uptick in meteors. I find it funny though. It's all over the place. You Google it. Meteor hits here, meteor hits there. Meteor shower tonight. If you go look at the sky at a certain time, you will see this meteor shower.
No, what that is an upsurge in the force of naivety. The force of and the force of gullibility.
So yeah, if you think about it, they actually, you say it flippantly, like soil in the sky, but that's what people actually believe.
Yes. That's the thing that bugs me the most.
It's insane.
When you look at the ground and you understand what the ground is and you grow stuff in the ground and then someone tells you, no, the sky is that. The sky is the soil. When you were saying on the live show about things being inverted, that's one of them. The sky is not where you get the soil from. But their whole origin story is exactly that. The entire world you're standing on is alleged to be created from soil from the sky. Moon, no different, right? Thea smashing into us creates soil in the sky that coalesces to create the moon in gravitational accretion, back to Newtonian. But that's the same thing. Soil from the sky coalescing to make the moon. That's their whole story.
I am disappointed. Hold on with the quarry. I am disappointed in this shark through a roof. Why didn't you have him coming out of the house at first? So the shark is coming from the sky too? Holy shoot. Someone's off mute playing video games.
No, it wasn't. It was Skype call, or Teams as it's now known. It was 10th Man trying to get hold of me.
Oh, I would take that call.
Oh, well, I'll round out. With that, I'm going to say another huge, massive, enormous thank you to both Discord and G Plus panels for making today's after show possible. And of course, a massive thank you to all of you for liking, commenting, sharing, subscribing, joining as a Nathan Oakley 1980 channel member, and all that good stuff. I've been Nathan Oakley, and I will see you all in the next video.